43, 30, and 2 for Barry and Lawrence. Jay, 39, 34, and 2.
I like, by the way,
it's how you finish.
It's
a lot of season left.
At the moment, you're finishing last. But
correct.
By the way, also,
the playoffs don't start today.
It's not Matthew. It's Barry, and then it's Lawrence and Jay. It's not Barry Croucher Jackson, or Barry Jackson Croucher, I should say, or Matthew Lawrence Jay. It's Barry. And then it's Lawrence.
Do you reckon it's maybe because you call everyone the little people? And then you call everyone the little people, so they're not on first name basis with you.
That's fair.
I think.
Then that should be Mr. Barry.
I think this conversation about the bar
it should be
trivia
Mr. Barry.
Senor
Senor
nice
Barry.
Microcosm for Week 9 because if you started the Chiefs' defense against the Dolphins,
you're feeling good.
So far, so very good.
You are eating good in the neighborhood.
But there's a long, long way to go, just as there is this season. Hey, it's Week 9, and it's time to make your move. It's November.
Yes, sir.
There's still a lot of football left to be played this season. With that, we welcome you to Fantasy Football Pregame. That's Lawrence. That's Jay. That's Barry or Matthew. If you're cool with
or
it.
Mr. Barry.
I'm Mike or Michael. I'm not
Senor
precious
Barry.
about such things. What we are precious about is your questions, your suggestions, your feedback, your love, adoration, whatever you got, your complaints to the hashtag FFPregame. We will answer your questions on Twitter and on YouTube. And with that, let's start with our top storylines for Week 9. And let's start over in Germany, Jay.
Indeed. Yeah, game going on right now.
Dunker.
Chiefs leading 21-0. As we always say, don't watch the game. Just watch us talk about the other games that aren't taking place yet. Yeah. But this one that is taking place, I think the story so far, Chiefs offense, not saying it's back on track entirely because they have stumbled a little bit, but Patrick Mahomes playing like an MVP. And I think from the Chiefs' perspective, the main story in terms of the pass catches is Rashee Rice. It's been very spread out in terms of receptions, but Rashee Rice catches the first touchdown, has a pivotal third down catch as well on their second touchdown drive. Still think he is clearly the wide receiver that you want on the Chiefs going forward.
All right.
Yes, agreed.
Lawrence, what you got? What's your top storyline?
For me, man, it's well, we got Deshaun Watson back under center in Cleveland. Now, it's against the Cardinals. But as we know, in the short time he's played this season, it's been more downs than ups. He had the one good game against Tennessee. So the question will be, for me, is like, are we going to get back, that great Deshaun Watson? It's a good opportunity here with the Cardinals where they're 13-point favorites, the Browns are. So, that'll be what I'm looking for today to see if Deshaun Watson will get this offense back on track.
Yeah, I think just finishing the game would be a step forward.
Just finishing the game, just making a nice little, non. You know what I'm saying? He had the noodle on the last time, and he was like, hey, I was hurt. Y'all wanted me to play. I played. I had the noodle on. So hopefully the arm's back to normal. You got the Cardinals. You got a rookie quarterback on the other side. So it's not like you're coming back and facing the Chiefs or the Bengals or something. This should be a game you should win by 13.
All right.
What do I?
What?
Say, the
okay, now you gotta say it. What?
The training videos of Deshaun Watson didn't look great. He looks like he's us throwing it into the proper shot.
What do you mean by noodle?
You heard that noodle arm. You've heard
Noodle,
that before.
I know. But
like Peyton Manning had at the end of his career.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Where's your head?
Not
you
there.
2 weeks out of Dollaritas. Those should be flushed out of the system already. Mr. Barry.
They're not. Thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate
State
that.
of Dollarita.
Yeah,
Confusion.
exactly.
Man, what's your story?
No, I didn't know if you meant. Never mind. You know what? That's fine. Deshaun Watson's never had a noodle arm. Is my point. Like, I guess it's the shoulder injury. It's
right. That was pretty much why he
okay.
threw that weird-looking interception against Indiana.
Yeah,
looked very uncharacteristic there.
This might be, Michael, you and I have been doing this a long time, all right? And you tell me if off the top of your head, I don't know that there's an uglier week in the NFL history for quarterbacks. Right? I mean, we saw Will Levis and Kenny Pickett go at it on Thursday night. We're going to have Taylor Heineke and Jaron Hall go at it later today. Clayton Tune is going to take it on. Brett Rippon is going to make a start, right? Tyson Bagent is going to be a starting quarterback today as well. Zach Wilson will be on Monday Night Football in this one. We'll have Bryce Young against Gardner Minshew. Baker Mayfield gets another start. And I also want to talk about, And yet, in a week in which there's nothing but ugly quarterback play, there may not be an uglier quarterback matchup than what my storyline is Daniel Jones coming back from injury without Darren Waller and Aiden O'Connell. And to me, that's the big one. Like the Raiders, and I got grief on this, and I don't understand why. I got grief when I tweeted this out because Schefter put out a report that the Raiders looked at, the Raiders got an inquiry from the Jets to get a trade for Davante Adams, and they were turned down. And I said, what a disaster of a franchise. You're going nowhere. You have Davante Adams who's on the wrong side of 30. Like maybe Davante Adams has another good year in him, maybe 2 more. But like if you can get out of that and get some picks, you are a long way from relevancy if you are the Las Vegas Raiders. And they turned that down. And so I tweeted out the fact, like, what a disaster of a franchise. And all these Raider fans are like, what are you talking about?
Oh, you best to know that was going to happen.
I'm just like, it isn't. Like, what I didn't realize is that Raiders fans have no self-awareness whatsoever. Because they were like, oh, coming from a Commanders fan. And I'm like, I know we're a mess. You know what I mean? Like, no one over the last 20 years has been like, yeah, we're a disaster. Under Dan Snyder, we were the worst professional team in sports history. Not NFL, the worst professional sports franchise in sports. But now under Josh Harris, we actually have a direction. We're heading in the right direction. So I thought that was a mistake. But bringing it back to fantasy, stop filibustering here, Barry. I will just say, I'm allowed to call myself Barry. The rest of you, I would please, Mr. Barry. But
you should self-refer as Mr. Barry.
Yeah, third person is fine every now and
listen,
then.
Mr. Barry. Look, what is this? In all seriousness, what does this Raiders offense look like? No Josh McDaniels, different offense coordinator now calling the plays, which to my knowledge does not have experience calling plays in the NFL. And does Davante Adams get fed? What happens with Josh Jacobs? Jacoby Myers has been a fantasy revelation this year. And so does he get, like the one game we have from Aiden O'Connell, Jacoby Myers did not have a great game. So I think you're still starting Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs, but what this Raiders offense looks like with a new play caller and Aiden O'Connell under center for this game and for the foreseeable future, to me is a big storyline going into today, Michael.
And they're favorites, too. Let's not forget that.
Which, by the way, that's crazy. Give me the Giants.
I like the Giants,
I like the Giants money line at plus money. Yep. By the way, that's a
go G-men.
Go G-men.
I'd like to piggyback off all 3 of your storylines.
I'm going to make sure I bet that, by the way.
And go a little macro, just big picture, not just this week, this season, but also moving forward. So you referenced the Germany game. Patrick Mahomes looking good. Tua quiet so far, but he's a guy locked in starter for you. You mentioned Deshaun Watson. Who is Deshaun Watson at this point? Is he healthy first and foremost? And you talked about the state of the quarterback position in week 9, specifically Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell is going to be his second start this season. But there are now going to be, after this week, 9 rookie quarterbacks to start a game this year through 9 weeks. That ties the single season record, okay? I counted 8 set it and forget it guys in week 9. 3 of them in the 6 of them, I beg your pardon, in 3 matchups, okay?
Right.
I mentioned the rookies. There are 6 rookie quarterbacks starting this week alone, okay? And on bye, Russell Wilson's meh. Goff's been great. Trevor Lawrence has underperformed this year, fantasy-wise. And Brock Purdy's, has his moments, but he's been struggling lately. My point is, and it's really the inspiration for this, guys, comes from I made a blockbuster trade in Dynasty for Dak Prescott.
Hold on. But somebody I've heard of.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like with the injuries at quarterback this year, the poor performance at quarterback this year, the revolving door at quarterback this year, if you have an opportunity to get a guy, because one thing I notice about all of our questions for fantasy football pregame at the hashtag FF pregame, a lot of people will flex with their depth at, like, who do I start with these 6 RB1s or these, like, go get you a quarterback. Get you a guy, because in the second half of the season and in the playoffs, you're going to have a huge advantage if you can start a Patrick Mahomes. Not that he's available, I'm just saying. If you're starting a Mahomes, a Hurts, a Tua, a Goff, a Dak, you know what I mean? If you can start a guy that has the potential to get you 30, it will give you a massive advantage. And as this guy is always talking about, it's about putting yourself in a position to win that week. And with the quarterback position, the way it is right now, it's just in shambles across the board for a lot of reasons.
I would agree with that. By the way, I think I don't know how you guys feel, but I believe that's a new fantasy football pregame record, longest path to Michael's Dynasty.
To my
team.
Dynasty?
I knew it was going to get to your Dynasty thing. I'm just saying, it took us a long way to get there. It took us a long way to get there. Usually your storyline immediately gets right to it. Like Keaton Mitchell, who I just picked up in my 45-team league. You know, Mari DiMaccardo, who I've had since draft day. Usually,
hey man,
you know,
not a
but
monster. I'm just ahead of the curve.
A lot of winding.
And ensure your guy, by the way.
Yeah, right. What you're talking about, I'll give you a personal example.
Yeah,
Mine,
please.
a couple of leagues, I put all my eggs in Anthony Richardson's basket, and I was happy with it. He's top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
Now he's gone, right? So since then, I've been flipping through Derek Carr's and Bryce Young's and now Matt Jones. So like you said, you don't want to get caught up in that position.
And even the guys like a Derek Carr, who I know had a string of 300-yard games, like who do you feel great about starting? Because if it's not the rookies or if it's not the Brett Rippons of the world, it's first-year starters or guys that are up and down. Nobody just cannot rest easy. Like I feel rested right now, not just because we fell back an hour, but because I got Dak. I feel good. Going against Philadelphia, I feel great. All right, enough about me.
He's only played like 2 good games, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
Well, okay.
It'll be 3. He'll have a good game today, Dan.
I think
the other ones have been kind of weird.
The
other ones have been weird. They've been, blowouts.
But it's rare you hear the phrase like, "I feel good, I've got Dak."
Yeah.
That's
not a question.
The state of the quarterback position
that
right
is true.
now. It is
that
so
is
gross,
correct.
as y'all like to say. It is gross.
All right, let's get to
All
burning
right,
questions.
burning questions, shall we? Starting with Buffalo and Cincinnati. A lot of storylines here.
Still no Lawrence.
No, I don't think we're doing Lawrence at this point because at this point the pop-up is better.
What? No! Look at that. They threw him in there.
Do we like? Do we like that one? I was going to say,
And we got
Steven,
the Dollaritas.
I actually like the other
We're all
one.
holding Dollaritas around the
I like the other
campfire.
one where he
Dollaritas
pops in
somehow.
better, to be honest with you. Like, guys, let's take a vote on this right now. I like the original where he
With
pops
Lawrence
in.
pops in. I like
Yeah.
that too, but it's a good-looking hat there, Lawrence. Like, you've got
Yeah,
some,
I
is that
got,
like
I got the Brahma Bull on there.
something.
Like that.
It's good. It's an off-speed pitch, this one.
Yeah.
But not like you said, the other picture though, it's like
and Jay's
I come
had
in late.
it sideways like he's some sort of cowboy rapper. What's going on there?
I actually am a cowboy rapper.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. I like that.
All right. I prefer the first one for whatever it's worth. Anyway, Bills, Bengals. A lot of storylines here, both in reality and fantasy. Obviously, first meeting since the unfortunate Damar Hamlin situation, who's going to be inactive, but nonetheless, an emotional reunion between these two AFC rivals, if you want to call them that. Certainly a lot of players that you're playing and starting or facing, as it may be, in fantasy. But I want to hone in on one in particular on the Cincinnati side, Matthew. So we know Burrow and Chase have got their groove back. We're waiting on T. Higgins, but it feels like from a usage standpoint, the arrow's pointing up.
There's no question about it. Look, he's played 4 full games so far this year, and in those 4 full games, he's averaging over 8 targets a game. He's got a 23% target share. I think this is the T. Higgins game we've been waiting for. Jamar Chase is going to get his, but I do expect a lot of scoring here. Since Tre'Davious White went down, Bills allow the 5th highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers. They allow the highest completion rate on deep passes. And whatever focus they are able to muster will be around Jamar Chase. Jamar's still going to get his, but I do think T. Higgins has a very nice game. I'm at wide receiver 18. I'm starting him. I get it. He has not been the guy you drafted would be, but I think this Bengals offense is obviously heading in the right direction. Give me T. Higgins as a top 20 play today.
Yeah, he was clearly the second guy in the pecking order in his comeback from injury. 5 for 69, that's not bad coming back. You put a touchdown with that, we talking a whole different ball game. Last week, though, Tyler Boyd outsnapped him 86% to 67. I expect that to flip now with T. Higgins being another week back from that injury.
Yep, I agree. I think the thing that you mentioned about the snap count is the key. He played 67% of the snaps last week, so he wasn't full go all the way back. For comparison's point, T. Higgins' go, week 1, he played 53 out of 56 snaps. He plays every snap, basically, so I think that we'll get closer to that. Against the Bills' defense, it's not scary in its current form.
Yep.
All right. Let's keep it pushing. And we have a YouTube question here from Derek. What's up, Derek? You're first up today. What players would be a good trade target for Mostert and Puka Nacua PPR league? He has A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Jalen Hurts, Sam Laporta.
Yeah, again, Derek likes to flex his good team. This is what you were
Is
talking about.
Is this one of those
this is not a guy that's
is this a
sweating trying to go
14 league?
get Dak Prescott. He's not. You're like Derek's like the anti-Michael Smith out there.
So wait, am I processing this slowly? What player would be a good trade target for Mostert and Nakua, and he wants to go acquire them?
Yeah, he wants us to tell him who should I go
should he
get
this is who he has.
with Mostert and Nakua.
Well, most of it might be a buy low after
Yes.
he's done
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
nothing.
he's had a
needs
bad
to hope
first half
Mostert-
here.
yeah, he needs to hope he gets
and listen,
it going.
Nakua got one target from Brett Rippon when he came into the game last week, and so we're hopeful that
He's also
Rippon-
banged up. He's questionable.
exactly. He was questionable. He's expected to play. So Nakua, may not have a great game today either. So I actually don't know that I would trade any of the guys you currently have for any of them. Like you'd rather. Of the running backs, you'd rather Kamara and Taylor than Mostert. You'd rather A.J. Brown and Chase than Nakua. And I guess if somebody's willing to give you Laporta, you know what I mean? Like, unless what he's saying is like, I have these guys and I'm trying to sell them.
That's what I think he's saying, which is tough to do right now.
Yeah.
Or is he just asking us, not to add further confusion, he's asking us for a suggestion of a player to take Mostert and Nakua to go get? This is who he has, and now it's like a random player that we just be like, hey, you know what? I would trade for this person.
Here's what I would say. I think we both agree that Mostert and Nakua's value is going to be lower after this week, and so if I'm trying to acquire them, I think basically borderline top 20 guys. Like I think. Again, we expect T. Higgins to have a nice game here. To me, T. Higgins and Puka Nakua, that's, I think that's reasonable.
I'm
right?
sorry,
Same
it might
thing.
just be me. This is one of those things where we need to pick up the phone. Like, you
Yeah.
have somebody send you a text,
Right.
and it's just like, wait a minute, I don't understand what you're asking me.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I feel about.
But
Hey,
the other thing,
we tried.
Mostert's taking around the corner for a nice
Nobody's
run.
watching that game, Matthew. They're watching you.
No, just watch us, because we'll tell you if anything interesting happens in that
Mostert
snoozy
stock
game.
is now going up now.
Yeah,
So-
or
right.
and there's a flag.
Tell us what happens on the next
Or
play,
just put us watch on both screens. What I would say though is that so if you're trying to acquire, this is a good week to do so because I think you're buying low. Top 20 value on each guy there. If I have them, I'm not selling them because I think again you would be selling low, and I would want to wait for another week because better days will be ahead for both Mostert and Puka Nakua.
Derek, apologies for being all over the place,
No,
but thank you for
Derek
the
needs
question.
to ask a better question. We love you, Derek. We need more detail. He knows that.
Thank you for asking. Thank you for being our first. Keep the questions coming. Hashtag FF Pregame. All right, moving on to Cowboys Eagles. Another game full of fantasy goodness.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people were playing. But you're starting Tony Pollard these days, you might not be feeling great about it.
You got to know.
So we're talking about trade targets just now from Derek. What about Tony Pollard? Is he somebody that you would try to target as a buy low candidate right now, Matthew?
I do think so. But I mean, again, it's so hard to get a deal done on game day. So you're just going to have to see how this one plays out as well. But look, I'll just say that in this game, I think we expect a good game from Dak Prescott, and the passing game has really gotten going.
You were just crapping on him a second ago when I told you I traded for him.
I'm a QB7 this week.
Okay.
I don't know that I would trade a bunch of dynasty assets for him. I'm not sure I would want to tie my dynasty
I'll show you
team
the trade.
to him.
I'll show you the trade.
All right, it's fair enough. But I will say that, Eagles allow the third most passing touchdowns this year. I have Dak at QB7. I also weirdly have Tony Pollard at running back 7. He's been unlucky in terms of his touchdowns, right? He's got 18 touchdowns inside the 10-yard line. That's tied for second most in the NFL, but only 2 touchdowns on those 18 touches. So I think positive touchdown regression is coming here for Tony Pollard, who is averaging over 18 fantasy points per game when he gets 15 touches this season. Against the Eagles, I expect him to get 15 touches. As that passing game has, kind of started to expand and get better with Lamb and Ferguson and Dak, I think that will open some lanes up for Tony Pollard. Hopefully Mike McCarthy gets him in space instead of continually running him just up the middle.
Yeah, I think he's a good trade target to buy low on, but in 12 hours, because I don't think he's going to have a good game against the Eagles. This is a team that has been very solid against the run, been more vulnerable against the pass. I don't understand why there are no running lanes for Tony Pollard, because they have a good offensive line in Dallas. But I think the other thing with Tony Pollard is, and people forget this, he broke his leg. He broke his leg in January. So I think it's a ramp-up process from a health perspective as well. And I think he will get right, and that team is too good. They also have an incredibly easy schedule coming up after today.
Yeah, speaking of the schedule, the next few teams after these Eagles are the Giants, then you got Carolina, you got the Commanders. None of them are close to the Eagles when it comes to run defense. Tony Pollard averaging still 19 touches a game. In the last 4, though, it's went down to 15 touches per game. So you're counting on that volume still, and the fact that he has that the schedule lightens up down the road heading into the fantasy playoffs.
All right. Fantasy Favors wants to know, is it crazy to flex Dalton Kincaid over Tony Pollard? Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall are his other 2 running backs.
It's not crazy because I do think Kincaid has a good game here. I'm as a top 4 tight end play, but I would not do that. I think I just, again, volume of touches. Yeah, you're probably crazy. I was trying to be nice. You're starting Pollard. You're starting Pollard. I mean, listen, it's your team. If you want to, I get it.
I wouldn't put Kincaid over Gus Edwards this week, just because the touchdown upside is there.
I mean,
he'll get more touches. That would be tough for me to do.
Look, I get it. Like last week, Kincaid was the better play of those 2, but I also think. And I always talk about this, just the mental aspect of fantasy football.
A lot of time on our hands.
Well, if you start Dalton Kincaid and Tony Pollard goes off, you can be like, what was I thinking? Mm-hmm. But if you start Tony Pollard and Kincaid goes off on your bench, you can be like, what are you going to do? You know, my tight end had a good game.
But if Fantasy Favors starts Tony Pollard and Kincaid goes off, he goes like, damn it, I knew it. I should have trusted my gut. I had a feeling. Why didn't I go with my gut?
And that's when we just shift the blame to Mr. Barry.
Thank you. There you go. I appreciate you addressing me the proper way. He's asking us what we would do. We would start Pollard over Kincaid.
Yes,
You're
definitely.
not crazy, but it is the low percentage play for sure.
I think the thing with Pollard too is that everything has gone wrong for him this year. It feels like he's had like a 2 out of 10 season. He's still RB16 and he's had a bye in there as well. So even with everything going wrong, he still gets receiving work. He's still the goal line guy, and he's still part of an explosive offense.
Keep the questions coming. Hashtag FF Pregame. We love answering them as best we can. Moving on to Rams Packers with Matthew Stafford unlikely to play with that UCL injury to his right thumb. So you're not starting Brett Rippon.
No.
And if you are, you're tanking for whatever reason. So the focus then shifts to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Matthew, this actually does concern me. I think you didn't say this with Tony Pollard. I don't want to get cute and not start Puka Nacua even with Brett Rippon at quarterback, but I am concerned.
I get the concern. I think it's legitimate. He's had under 50 receiving yards in 2 of the past 3 games. Brett Rippon, as I mentioned, small sample size, but I believe off the top of my head, he attempted 10 passes in for Matthew Stafford last week. Only 1 of those passes went towards Puka Nacua. So I certainly get the concern. At Green Bay. Having said that, I think I'm still starting Puka Nacua. I just don't know how. I still think he's a borderline, top 20 play this week. I get he comes into the game banged up. He's less than 100% healthy. Mm-hmm. He's got a backup quarterback, and they're at Lambeau where the Packers are a middle of the pack no pun intended. They're like 17th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. So they're kind of a middle of the pack defense.
They have their moments.
They do have their moments, although they're playing for next year. They traded away. Anyway, Gary, but what I will say here is that if I have Puka Nacua, and I do have him in a number of leagues, I'm starting him. I just think their offense stays the same, even though it's Brett Rippon. They're not going to change the offense for Brett Rippon. He's still going to run the same offense, just not as well. And that's an offense that since Cooper Kupp came back, Puka Nacua has a 32% target share. A 32% target share. So again, you lower expectations because it's Rippon under center, but I can't turn down a 32% target share.
The reality is we're halfway through the season and Puka Nacua is wide receiver 4 in fantasy. So I think at that point you just have to start the guy. I understand there's context around that which will hurt him today, but I think he's just too good. They're also 4-point underdogs. Expect that they will need to throw in the game, and so I think you just have to start both these guys.
Yeah, the only thing you mostly worry about is the chemistry that Stafford has built up with those guys and the timing of the offense. But like you said, Matthew, they're gonna run the same offense, so they're underdogs. You're hoping for the volume here. What if Rippon throws a pick hit or two here and there. It's not affecting our receivers. If we could get 35 passing attempts, you got to feel good about both receivers.
Did you say emotionally worried about?
No. Nothing with football affects me emotionally.
I was gonna say.
Nothing.
All right, we got another question.
Too bad, because that would have been great.
Start Puka Nacua like we know Stafford,
Yeah.
or transition to either Zay Flowers or DJ Moore.
I get the questions, especially with Zay Flowers, who is due for positive touchdown regression.
That's the new name of my fantasy team, by the way.
Yeah, positive
change it.
touchdown regression. I like it. I have DJ Moore at 21. I have Zay Flowers at 27. I'm still going with Puka Nacua there. I will say, just again, you've got DJ Moore on the road with Tyson Bagent, and Zay Flowers. Like again, I think he's due for positive touchdown regression. But the Seahawks are really good defensively, especially in their secondary. And so, I think it's going to be a heavy run game, whether it's Lamar Jackson or Gus Edwards, or maybe Keaton Mitchell, who's flashed in moments.
He should play today.
Yes, he should. I'm still going with Puka Nacua there.
Full PPR start, one flex and one running back. Puka, T. Higgins, Jerome Ford, or Darrell Henderson.
I think you're starting the two wide receivers. Look, I get it. If I had to pick one of the running backs, give me. Oh, you have to pick one running back.
One.
Oh, okay. Then I'm gonna say Henderson. Henderson would be the running back that I like. I like the most here. Ford's part of that three-headed committee. I get it. They're playing Arizona. But
Real quick, was it a three-headed committee, or was he just coming back from the ankle injury? Because down the stretch, they fed him the most.
Yeah, I mean maybe, right?
Okay.
I mean, but it's hard to it's sort of hard to say.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt has been sort of the lead guy there. I get it. It's Arizona, but I just sort of feel like Henderson on the road at Green Bay. I feel like with Brett Rippon under center, they'll feature the run game a little bit more. And what was encouraging about Henderson last week is he was involved in the passing game as well. Yeah. So I think again, as we mentioned, they're underdogs here. He'll be on the field even if they get down. So for me, it's Henderson. I'm nervous about this Cleveland offense, to be honest there. I'll just be honest with you. I have Puka ranked higher, but for you, I think I go Higgins because I don't have much difference between Puka and Higgins, and I just think he's the safer play. There's more variance with Puka. I do think Higgins has a good game tonight.
Okay. Moving on to Vikings, Falcons, and avert your eyes, Lawrence. As we have embarked on the Taylor Heineke era
Yes.
in Atlanta. I changed another one of my fantasy team names to Toxic Groupthink.
That's pretty good.
In honor of
Arthur
Smith. So, But anyway, Taylor Heineke versus Jaron Hall. Again, back to my top storyline. This is what we're dealing with at quarterback in the NFL nowadays. And you're not starting either one of these guys in a normal size league under normal circumstances, unless you're in two quarterback and you're desperate. But the more important thing is the skill guy. You start Jared Hall against me in the show.
Yes.
Okay, well, two quarterback and you're desperate. So there you go.
I am definitely
there you
desperate.
Go. But more important is the skill guys. On the Minnesota side, we're talking about the Addisons of the world, the Hawkins of the world. Of course, on the Atlanta side, no Drake London, but we got Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, Bijan Robinson and company. So, obviously your expectations are lowered and tempered. How much lowered and tempered are your expectations given this quarterback matchup?
Yeah, I mean, they're lowered. I mean,
This is a great beer goggles conversation, right?
Very good beer goggles conversation. Jaron Hall is a smaller guy. He's a scrambler, and so he'll be aggressive. But when you're scrambling, that's more. That's off schedule plays. Thank you. I'm brain fart there for a second. More off schedule plays, and so you get a little bit nervous about that. I think the Falcons offense takes a step up today with Taylor Heineke. I think he's going to be an improvement.
Okay.
So and I actually think because there's no Drake London, I think you'll see more Kyle Pitts. I think you'll see more Bijan Robinson. Probably a lot of Mac Hollins, and and you're just what?
That's who I should go pick up.
Right, Mac Hollins.
No,
right?
I went Van Jefferson instead.
Don't steal my thunder. That's coming up later.
Right. But I do think Kyle Pitts, on a Falcons team that's number one in the NFL in tight end target share, he's averaged over 12 fantasy points a game when he's gotten at least 6 targets. Again, no Drake London, so I do have Pitts as a top 10 play today at the position. Jordan Addison to me is the other big question here. What do you do with him? I think you start him. Again, he's you hate to use this phrase, but I do think he's a wide receiver 3 with upside. I mean, he's scored in 4 straight games. He's had back-to-back games with a 23% target share. He is the number 1 wide receiver on a team that I think is going to have to throw. He'll see some A.J. Terrell. He's going to have inconsistent quarterback play. But he's also a guy, because this game's in Atlanta on the turf, he's a guy that all he needs is 1 missed tackle and he's off to the races. And so the leagues that I have Addison in, I'm starting him. Again, he's my wide receiver 24 today.
Yeah, I think a sneaky thing with this game as well, particularly on the Vikings side and starting some of their skill position players, is that Christian Darrisaw got downgraded to questionable yesterday. That's a massive deal for Jaron Hall, for a rookie quarterback making his first ever start on the road. Christian Darrisaw is the best left tackle in football when Trent Williams is hurt. And if he doesn't have Darrisaw, then all of a sudden that line starts to look a lot more shaky and his job gets a lot more difficult. So if you're kind of 50-50 on the edge with some decisions, I'd wait to see Darrisaw's status.
Morning, Larry Ellis. Jay, don't feel too bad about being ranked 3rd by Matthew last week. In our household, you're number 1.
Thank you.
Now on to my question.
Thank you, Larry.
In my flex, should he go Chuba Hubbard or Jordan Addison? Jay, I think you should answer that question.
I do
for
too,
Larry.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm still taken aback by Larry's effusive praise. That's great.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard or Jordan Addison. Again, I think that ties into the Christian Darrisaw thing. I think if Darrisaw is playing, I feel a lot better about their passing offense in general, and I might skew to Addison, but in general, I'd probably go Hubbard because I'm just more confident in the usage there.
Yeah, my ranks, by the way, I agree with that. I agree with Hubbard there.
Oh, I
he
thought
should
you meant
get
the J. I thought you had revised.
No,
Okay,
listen,
okay.
I mean,
So I'm still number 1, right? Okay, good.
We'll see. We'll see at the end of it.
Week to week.
Week to week. It's always week to week. I have moved Jay over Lawrence though.
Oh,
just
really?
so you know.
No, wait. Jay was
already
already
over Lawrence.
dead last.
Yeah.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
I thought I had you
dead
reversed.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right. I'm deader last now.
Yeah, dead
I
last.
just know it wasn't me.
Fourth.
Anyway,
Show
I was
free
just going to
code.
say is this is a Frank Reich revenge game. Very exciting. Everyone's talking about it. Chuba Hubbard is their guy. Colts are a bottom 10 run defense, bottom 12 run defense over the last 4 weeks. So, I give me Chuba Hubbard, whose workload should be safer, whose situation I think is more predictable than what we'll get out of Addison.
All right. This show's already drunk, but y'all ready to take some shots? Anyway?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Okay.
Jay, since you are number 1 in the Jay Ellis household, not Jay Ellis, that's my man, Jay Ellis, shout out Insecure,
Okay.
Top Gun. Larry Ellis, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Jay Croucher.
Yeah, sticking with the Panthers theme, in fact. I'm going with Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick, who took out CJ Stroud last week. He continues to trend up, goes for 250-plus yards, and beats Indianapolis as a home underdog.
I like it.
Yeah,
Salute.
yeah.
Matthew.
All right. Here's my shot, which is all about predictions. I predict I'm going to be wrong on Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was on my hate list this week. I write those on Wednesday. Since that time, one of the reasons I hated it, I mentioned that I hate him, is because I'm like, free Aaron Jones is a guy who's had under 12 touches in every game so far this year, hasn't had double-digit fantasy points since week 1. But Matt LaFleur, after I wrote the article, and I'm going to take full credit for this, even though I don't believe Matt LaFleur actually reads Love Hate, I'm going to take credit for this. He came out and said, actually, we need to get Aaron Jones more involved. Training wheels are off, full steam ahead. We've got to ride him. We've got to use him. And so you think about the Rams defense, which is the bottom 12 run defense over the last 4 weeks. I think that Aaron Jones, they need to get something going with the Packers. I think he gets a big workload today, apparently fully healthy. I'm going to be wrong on Aaron Jones. Big day coming for Aaron Jones. Hey, social team, please tweet that out for me as well.
We definitely love that one
Lawrence,
right here.
holla at your boy.
Seattle defense, 4 of their last 5 games, they faced P.J. Walker, Josh Dobbs, Daniel Jones, and Andy Dalton, who lit them up for 360 and 2 touchdowns. We know none of them are Lamar Jackson. I'm going back to Lamar. You notice I was quiet on him last week. I didn't say nothing. But
the week before that, though,
right.
you called
So
it.
now we back 300.
Yeah, last week he got me eliminated from a guillotine league because he had one touchdown
But
against
that's why
Arizona.
last week he wasn't on my shot for shot. This week he's back for another 350 total yards and 3 touchdowns, and he will be the MVP favorite after this weekend.
You facing me in the show league too? I'm not rooting for you to be right in this contest.
I'm gonna be right, but that's the only place to get my points from.
Okay. All right, cool. I'm gonna go to Buffalo. James Cook had a nice season, aside from they don't give him the ball in close.
Right.
I think he breaks a long one. I think he catches a touchdown. So James Cook cooks tonight to the tune of a rushing and receiving touchdown.
All right.
Okay, I like it. All right, I'm up. Rashid Shaheed coming off a massive 3 for 153 game last week.
Talk
he
about
cashes
efficiency.
anytime touchdown at plus 265. You know what Rashid Shaheed likes? He likes secondaries that break down so he can get loose in the back. And in a dome as well. Derek Carr trending in the right direction. He scores against Chicago.
I didn't know where you were going to go when you were like, when you know what Rashid Shaheed likes, and I'm like, I don't know, mystery murder movies. Like, does he like?
What do you mean?
Fried chicken?
Yeah, miniature golf. Like, what does he like? Who knows?
We'll
What
find
could
out.
it be? Like, he likes meat lover pizzas. I don't know. Like, who knows what he likes?
What does Matthew Berry like today from the Patriots-Commanders game?
I will tell you what I like. I like me some DeMario Douglas. I was like, who?
Yes,
but like
sir. Yes, sir.
Devontae Parker, he's not going to play today. He is out. Kendrick Bourne obviously out for the season. So DeMario Douglas, here's what you're going to do. You're going to wish that you had picked up DeMario Douglas. I'm at wide receiver 32, but team high target share each of the last 2 weeks. We know my Commanders can't play defense. They, by the way, should be a clean pocket for Mac Jones, Montez Sweat, Chase Young no longer on the team. DeMario Douglas coming out party today against my terrible Commanders.
I was a week early on that. That was my shot last week with DeMario Douglas.
Yeah,
So hopefully you
Pop
picked him up
Douglas.
after last
Pop
week.
Douglas, he
Or before last
gonna
week.
pop off. We
That
with
was
that
they-
there.
Boom.
We talked a
sounds
little
familiar.
bit about Deshaun Watson earlier, and my shot for him right now is predicated on him being healthy. So, should he be healthy, he'll finish inside the top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy this week against Arizona. They've allowed multiple touchdowns to quarterbacks in 3 of the last 5 games. Now, that's not crazy, but seeing how Watson's played this season, it is a little bit. So Deshaun Watson finishing inside the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks.
Okay. Hey, Jay, you call Rashid Shaheed catching an anytime touchdown. I think he catches it from Taysom Hill. Not done. Give me Taysom Hill because I need it. I'm manifesting it.
All right, I
Speaking it into
appreciate it.
existence.
Good.
I need Taysom Hill, big game. Passing touchdown.
Oh.
Rushing touchdown.
Oh,
And a receiving touchdown.
snap!
That would make him the 5th player ever, joining Walter Payton, David Patton,
McCaffrey's in there, right?
Christian McCaffrey,
Yeah.
and LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah,
McCaffrey did it last
Talking
year.
Hall of Famers.
Those are the 4
and
guys.
Taysom Hill.
And Taysom Hill will join that crew. Those are the guys that have run for, thrown for, and caught a touchdown in the same game. Taysom Hill does that against the Bears today. I'm calling history with my shot.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
By the way, my shot is I think Cedric Wilson catches a touchdown today.
Cool.
And that's what I just want to say that. I think everyone wants to talk about Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but I believe this is Cedric Wilson's coming out party today.
You're the new guy.
I think he catches a bomb from Tua. It's probably about, I don't know, call it 30 yards, 35 yards.
30, 31?
31,
Yeah,
something like that. Anyway,
First
that just
interception.
happened in the other
Maybe
game.
in the third quarter.
Tua to Cedric Wilson. All right,
Okay.
whose shot
I'm
is
up.
it?
I'm up.
Jay,
You're up. All right, go ahead.
I'm going to say the Buffalo Bills win on Sunday Night Football. They're 2.5-point underdogs. They played Cincinnati in the playoffs last year. Yes, they got beaten real bad, but they closed 5.5-point favorites in that game. It's too big of an adjustment for me. I think the Bills, they get right. Extra rest. Josh Allen takes the Bills to 6-3 on Sunday Night Football.
I like that.
That's right, first regular season. I think I said the first time they played. First time they played in the regular season. All right, Matthew, your shot.
We got the Eagles Cowboys.
Look,
Wow.
build the drama there.
Yeah.
Everything.
We got
Like
the
that.
Eagles
Tell us what Rashid
Cowboys.
Shaheed likes.
Big game today. Not as great as Bills Bengals tonight on Sunday Night Football on NBC and Peacock. I'm a company man, but it's a pretty good game. And in that game, you're going to see not one, but 2 top 5 tight ends. Dallas Goedert and Jake Ferguson both finish Week 9 as top 5 fantasy tight ends. Goddard's got a 20% target share since Week 5. Ferguson tied for the most red zone targets against tight ends. We always say this, start your tight ends against Philadelphia. Goddard and Ferguson both top 5 today.
I like it.
I
Lawrence.
love that one, and I need it too. So, Atlanta, Week 8 versus Will Levis. He was quarterback 6. Week 7 versus Mayfield, quarterback 11. Sam Howell, the week before, was quarterback 8 against the Falcons. Atlanta is 10th worst against quarterbacks in fantasy. I'm going Jaron Hall, the rookie. First start, top 15 fantasy quarterback in his first start. Kid could play. Let's go. And I'm starting him.
All right.
You sure are.
With
Against me.
confidence that he will be a top 15 quarterback in fantasy.
I will say this: if you beat Michael with an obscure quarterback, that would be justice.
Why would that be justice?
Because you love the obscure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Your name is Jaron Hall.
I could have went Clayton Tune.
I know.
I could have
Who
went
I actually
Williams.
like, by the way. I was surprised he didn't play earlier.
It's still a great matchup.
I like him.
Yeah, right. Well, you got
Miles Garrett?
exactly. So there you go.
I'm just saying, if you're a ragtag team of obscure players,
Man,
beats
it's
Michael's
like-
ragtag team of obscure players.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like
Must be nice sitting on top of the world, looking
really
down.
is.
At
It really
my
is.
whole bench is
Peasants.
like
Well-
an IR, an O, an I. That's how my bench
Well,
look right now.
after I got cut from my Guillotine league that I care about because of Lawrence's Lamar Jackson and candidly my own Dameon Pierce. That screwed me too.
ridiculous.
Yeah, that's really what killed me is being wrong on Dameon Pierce all season long, as it turns out.
Speaking of
Singletary
obscure,
show.
somewhat obscure,
Yeah.
Lawrence, you kind of stole my thunder earlier. Van Jefferson atones for that awful drop, holds on this time, catches a touchdown from Taylor Heineke. Van Jefferson's kind of like my sneaky wide receiver play.
All right.
Like
Okay.
my,
All right,
my
let's-
deep wide receiver.
Might be a wide receiver 1 on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, All right, that's it for shot. We would do proper shot later on. Little Kirk Cousins tribute. I think we should get,
Nice.
Hey, Steven. I'm sure it's a nice t-shirt. Hey, Steven, here's what we need to have. We need, because everybody makes these t-shirts nowadays, like, with people's faces on them or whatever,
Yeah.
collages. We need a fantasy football pregame t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we need. So,
Yeah.
so don't worry about the burning questions animation. That's all set with just Lawrence popping up at the last second. Let's get a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Okay.
All right.
Inactives, proper shot coming up.
But it should be like the three of us and then like Lawrence on the sleeve.
On the sleeve, yeah.
Right, like-
on the back. Lawrence on the back.
On the
yeah,
back, there you
yeah.
go.
Got to walk away for you to see it.
Yeah.
Man, if the mics would have been hot like 5 seconds earlier. mean, it's tough to watch these live games and whatnot. All right, inactives. You got the internet, but just in case you missed it, Matthew Stafford is officially out, as is Dameon Pierce. Amari DeMarcado ruled out earlier this week. Puka Nacua is up. Already was out. Drake London was already out. Josh Palmer was already out. Curtis Samuel was already out. Shout out to Jamison Crowder, another deep sleeper.
Yep.
Devontae Parker. What you said, Steven?
Devontae Parker is out. Justin
Oh, yeah,
Fields
Fields
not
is
listed.
officially out, right.
Fields is officially out.
Hey,
Tyson
not
Bagent
listed-
makes another start.
and
Although
not
there's a
listed
chance
here-
Fields could get play on Thursday.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And not listed here is Josh Downs. He is tracking to play reportedly. Listed as questionable, afternoon game, so have a alternative in case he ends up not playing. All right, let's look at some waiver wire pickups. You should already be on Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
I mean, dude's borderline top 20, Matthew.
He is. Well, like with Dameon Pierce out, right? You know, Singletary should get a pretty big workload here. It's not a great matchup against Tampa Bay, but they do use him in the passing game as well. Keontae Ingram again. Amari DeMarcado is out. I mean, it's Clayton Tune under center, and it's the Browns, so he's truly, if you're desperate. I do think Roschon Johnson, who is the passing down back, right? I mean, him and last week, Roschon Johnson and Deontay Foreman kind of split the touches, but Johnson's the one who's going to get the passing work. And so the Bears on the road at New Orleans, they're underdogs here. You expect them to be throwing. Johnson is sort of interesting here. And as we've talked about, Royce Freeman, we expect the Rams to try to run and take some pressure off Brett Rippon, who's officially starting for LA today. If I'm picking one of these guys up to stash, I don't need somebody today, but I'm just trying to make a sneaky waiver grab. If Zach Charbonnet is still out there, that's the guy that I like the most long-term, him and Roschon Johnson, because I will just tell you, Pete Carroll continues to talk up Charbonnet. He continues to get healthier, and he's somebody that I think second half of the season is pretty interesting.
I talked about Demario Douglas last week. You talked about him last segment.
Yes, sir.
Who else do you like on this list other than our boy Demario Pop Douglas to pop off?
Well, obviously Tank Dell, who missed a couple of games and was down a little bit, but I do still think he's a very talented player as well. How about Jaden Reed, as we talk about this Packers offense trying to get in line? He's had double-digit fantasy points 3 of the last 4 games. Brandon Cooks, we've talked about this matchup quite a bit. Your guy, Dak Prescott, he's starting to come alive. Brandon Cooks has Eagles have allowed the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And I'll just say this, another interesting guy, not just for today, but sort of longer term, is Jonathan Mingo. Look at his usage from last week where he ran a lot more routes. Remember last week, Frank Reich gave up the play calling duties. They had a new play caller, and the first thing that they did, is get Jonathan Mingo more involved. And so Mingo is somebody who I think could have a nice second half of the season as the youth movement continues in Carolina.
And on to quarterbacks and tight ends. We talked about Taylor Heineke. Gardner Minshew has been a turnover machine, but he still manages to offset it with production for fantasy purposes. Anybody else you want to shout out on this here list?
It has not been pretty. It won't be pretty today. But since week 4, Baker Mayfield is the 13th best quarterback in fantasy football. We talked about the fact that, my Washington Commanders defense is brutal. After Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry could be somebody that is a viable option if you're desperate at tight end. And it's worth noting Gerald Everett is back. Josh Palmer is out. And so when you think about that game against the Jets, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner on the outside. Middle of the field feels like a pretty good place to attack if you're Justin Herbert.
Yep, Hunter Henry also going up against the Commanders' defense, which doesn't have its best players
Oh,
anymore.
questions. It's been too long since I've heard that noise. Don't want to chance it with Josh Downs as a game time decision at 4. I get it.
Correct.
Should he just roll with Tank Dell in his flex, or maybe take a shot with Van Jefferson, who I called for a touchdown earlier, or Jalen Hyatt in half PPR? Thank you, Lou, for your question.
I would roll with Tank Dell.
Yeah.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
I just, again, Jalen Hyatt, we don't know. I keep waiting for Jalen Hyatt, and we expect the Giants offense to be better with Daniel Jones back, but it hasn't been great as well. And, I know you're calling Van Jefferson, but it's a long shot. It's a long shot for sure. Tank Dell is the number 2 guy there in Houston. It's a decent matchup as well, especially because, by the way you attack Tampa Bay is throwing the ball. I think they're going to struggle to run the ball, and so give me. Tank Dell is who I would go with, and I think we all feel pretty strongly about that.
Yeah, Jalen Hyatt as well. He's someone who's dependent on deep ball throwing, which Tyrell Taylor actually does more of than Daniel Jones.
Correct.
Amon on a mission. I like that. Needs 3 for full PPR. Gus Edwards, Rashid Shaheed, Trey McBride, or James Cook. The Detroit and Niners buys hurt him.
Well, sorry for that first.
Yeah.
Okay. This is like full PPR. Like, I think this is going to be shocking when you think about how much he did last week, but I'm actually going to bench Rashid Shaheed. He had the one big play, and he's a guy that only needs one big play to make it work for you, but he had a 22% snap share last week. Like, again, we're just sort of looking for workload. Cook, we expect to have a good workload. This might be his last gasp before Leonard Fournette comes. Like, James Cook is aware of that,
Trey
right?
McBride's middle name is workload.
They are top 3 in the NFL in terms of tight end target share, the Arizona Cardinals. So, like, McBride's going to get a lot of looks. Clayton Tune's going to run the same offense that they've been running all year. And then Gus Edwards, he's like had 15, 16 touches a game for the last month. So I just think in terms of workload, Shaheed is like, to me, Shaheed's the guy I'm benching.
Yeah,
Any
2 point Matthew. He played 18 snaps last week, and then after the game where he went off, Dennis Allen was like, yeah, he's got a lot of improvements he needs to make.
Walmart Greeter wants to start 2. Jacoby Myers. It's pretty good. Jacoby Myers, Tyler Lockett, Pop Douglas, or Jordan Addison in half PPR.
As much as I love Demario Douglas, first off, Jacoby Myers makes me nervous. Aiden O'Connell's the one game that he played was Myers' worst game of the season. So Myers makes me nervous. So it's none of the other 3. I really like Demario Douglas today. I've said that before. I think he's going to pop off. Having said that, no pun intended. Having said that, it's hard for me to bench Tyler Lockett or Jordan Addison given their track record of success this entire season. Demario Douglas is more of I think this is going to happen. With Addison and Lockett, we've seen it. So for me, those are the guys that I would go with.
I like that logic. Next one is from Alex Miller. Needs 3 for PPR. Henderson, Gabe Davis, Demario Douglas, Zach Moss, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, A.J. Dillon. He has Josh Allen. Who has to be a super stack there, right?
Yeah.
I actually a super stack. Gabe Davis, Shakir, and Kincaid. Wow, it's a lot.
So, all right,
he's a Bills fan,
right.
Clearly, with the Bucs in his avatar.
Let's
Got the whole Bills offense. Where the linemen at, man?
I think it is. First off, I think of your Bills, sounds like you desperately want to start a Bill.
Yeah.
So to me, Gabe Davis is the guy that I'm starting of your Bills. Okay, so there you go. I think it's Henderson, Gabe Davis, and Zach Moss. To me, again, I really like Demario Douglas. I really like Dalton Kincaid. So I think it's of those 5. I would not start Shakir or A.J. Dillon. But I think Henderson has a nice workload today. Again, he's involved in the passing game. I'm encouraged by what we saw out of Gabe Davis last week, and I feel better about him than Dalton Kincaid. Both had huge games last Thursday night against the Buccaneers. Just longer track record of success for Gabe Davis here. And Zach Moss, I just don't know how you bench him after everything he's done. He should continue to get a big workload. So for me, that's where I'm going. I'm going Henderson, Moss, and Gabe Davis.
I love how we answer questions. We answer them thoroughly.
What do you think?
No, that was a great breakdown.
Okay,
that was a great breakdown.
Yeah, no, I agree. Gabe Davis is the one I almost feel best about, given his usage last week and how his role has changed.
Yeah.
Keep the questions coming. Hashtag FF Pregame.
Okay.
All right, who wants to go first this time? I feel like I always go first.
I'll go first because I'm terrible, and hopefully by the time everyone else is thrown, you guys forget how brutal my throwing is. Because it's hard to hard because I have this high back,
and you're under
so it's like
let's blame everything.
You're kind of under pressure from me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's say hit the thing. This is brutal. Go ahead, Lawrence.
I'm gonna go lefty like my man Tua. Here we go. Touchdown for Tua right now.
No, check down. You're close.
Check down.
There we go. Lefty
field goal.
Tua.
Left go field goal.
All right.
Interesting. Lawrence was aiming for interception.
Hey.
I don't even look at the title. I just try to get it in the hole.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a joke there.
I was trying to just move it. Just let it, let it linger. Let it linger. Okay, Jay, you
proper
first.
shot?
Yes,
Right.
proper shot. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Jonathan Taylor rushing yards over under 66.5.
Yeah, he went over this in the first half alone last week. I'm taking the over. I think we start to see 2021 JT again against a weak Carolina run defense.
Lawrence, DeAndre Swift's yards from scrimmage over under 76.5.
This is tough. He's averaged 76.8 the last 5 games. Dallas is a better pass defense than run defense. And I just decided this now. I'm going to say over.
Okay. Matthew, Darrell Henderson's rushing yards over under 45.5.
Yeah, I'm going over. Packers have allowed 50 or more rushing yards to running back 3 of the last 4 games. Henderson has 30 rush attempts in his 2 games with the Rams on the road. Brett Rippon under center. They're going to want to feature the run game. Give me the over on 45.5. That line has dropped, too.
Jay, DK Metcalf's receiving yards over under 54.5.
Yeah, this is too low for me. I'm going over. He's had 23 targets the past 2 weeks.
Okay. Raheem Mostert just scored. You got him in your Guillotine League, right?
I have him in my Guillotine League as well. That was also going to be between that, Cedric Wilson, I was also going to be my other shot was Raheem Mostert. I did say Raheem must start on Friday. I will say.
Is this a rushing touchdown, by the way, or throwing?
Rushing.
Rushing touchdown.
Damn.
All right. Lawrence, keep the ball. Deshaun Watson's passing yards over under 202.5.
I'm going to go over. Arizona's giving this up in every game except one. Watson's last 2 games, full games, he's flew past this number, so I'm going to go over.
Matthew, Alvin Kamara's receptions over under 4.5.
Oh, over. Only 2 teams in the NFL have allowed more receptions to running backs than the Chicago Bears as well. Kamara has a 17% target share in 4 out of the 5 games he's played so far this year. Give me over 4.5 receptions. This number would have been much higher 2 weeks ago, but he's come down to earth a little bit and just been an awesome running back. But Alvin Kamara is my number 1 running back in fantasy this week. I'm ranked number 1.
Wow.
Yeah, so give me the over on 4.5 receptions for sure.
Jay, Sam Howell's passing and rushing yards over under 264.5.
I'm going over here. He had 397 just passing yards last week. Seems like they're using more tight end sets to give him more time, more protection. I think he stays upright more, and I think he goes over on this.
Lawrence, Devontae Adams receiving yards over under 72.5.
It's crazy. He hasn't even had this. He hasn't reached this number since week 4, but it was with Aiden O'Connell. And in that game, he had 13 targets, extremely small sample size, but it's all we got. No more Josh McDaniels. They having fun, whatever. So I'm going to go over.
Matthew, Taylor Heineke's passing yards over under 208.5.
I'm going to take the under on this one for Heineke. Look, for all the struggles that the Vikings have had this year, they've been a top 10 pass defense. Also, Jaron Hall under center. I think you see a defensive touchdown here for the Falcons as well. I don't know how much Heineke's going to have to throw because the Vikings put up all these crazy points. I don't think that happens. So Heineke, who averaged 206 passing yards a game in his last 9 starts with Washington, I'm taking the under here in his first start for the Falcons.
Jay, Rachaad White's rushing attempts over under 13.5.
Going under on Rachaad White. He's gone under 3 weeks in a row. They're trending towards 3-point dogs at Houston. I think they will be trailing. I think they'll need to throw.
Lawrence, Joe Burrow's completions over under 26.5.
This is a high number, and I know he hit the over on this last week, but Buffalo has not allowed this to any quarterback this year. Furthermore, Burrow himself has only hit this 3 out of 7 games, so I'm going to go under on this one.
And lastly, Matthew, I'm not going to ask you if A.J. Brown keeps his record streak of consecutive games with at least 125 receiving yards intact. It's at 6 and counting. Over under 83.5.
Yeah, obviously I'm taking the over here. You mentioned the 6 straight games with 125 receiving yards. He's had a 50% target share versus man coverage this year. Dallas plays a ton of man coverage. My expectation here is in a big game for the division for the Eagles. A.J. Brown gets a ton of looks here. By the way, as you mentioned, 6 straight games with 125 receiving yards. If you just bet the alt line of 120 yards for A.J. Brown on DraftKings, it's at plus 285. So I kind of I like that bet better.
Yeah,
for prop shot, I'm taking the over 83.5. But yeah, I kind of like the alt line for A.J. Brown here at plus 120. 120 yards at plus money, I should say.
DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and today new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. A Minnesota fan trying to get a prominent player to sign with the Buffalo Bills.
It's nice and professional.
I like that.
Always be closing.
And you know
I
what?
believe that is legally binding.
100% it's legally binding. So if he can get, you never know. If Justin Jefferson signs that, then,
So wait,
we can break news.
In Atlanta, a sign in Atlanta
Yeah.
held by a Minnesota fan trying to get Justin Jefferson to sign with the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah.
I'm
That's how you know he
confused
means
AF
business. He means
right now.
business.
It's definitely going to work. It's definitely going to work. Justin J. Jefferson.
I am
He
really,
should probably date that And hopefully he's got like a notary public next to him. You bring your stamp just to make sure you lock that all in.
That's actually a good business in that.
Yeah. Stadium notary public, yeah.
I think you're up to now 17-1 against NFC teams. Is there any way to explain that?
Bro, we're playing football. It's not about NFC or AFC. I'm trying to win regardless. I don't even want to put that in my head or let you finish that question. We good. We good.
I think it was more about the fact that maybe
No, don't try to fake his question. We good.
Well, Lawrence has already called a big game for his boy Lamar Jackson for his show league team against my team. So that's going to happen for that reason and that reason.
By the way, important update, and speaking of the show league, I have Raheem Mostert in the league, and so my team has gone up on No Way Monfrey in our show league, and just so I know everyone's very interested in that because, everyone cares about your fantasy team.
I think they do, honestly. It's what unites us all.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the rankings, and I think we're all united in our admiration, love, and respect for one Joe Burrow, Matthew.
Yeah, Fantasy Life investor Joe Burrow. Yeah, we love him. FantasyLife.com. Free newsletter, the whole thing. Joe Burrow, very excited about.
It's really good.
He's very excited about the business of Fantasy Life. And I appreciate it. It is a really good newsletter, and it's free. I don't know why people don't just because it's a free newsletter. Who cares? Anyway, the fact of the matter is I have Joe Burrow as a top 3 quarterback play tonight. First off, we expect a lot of points from the Bengals, right? Second highest implied team total so far this week. Last 3 weeks, averaging over 21 fantasy points per game. The Bills have allowed 19 fantasy points or more to each of the last 2 quarterbacks they faced. You know, Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones. And now they got to face Joe Burrow and a healthy T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, also a Fantasy Life investor. Yeah, thank you very much. Joe Burrow, my QB3, and I might be too low on him.
Lawrence, your boy Lamar is number 4, but let's go back to number 1 and talk about Joe Burrow's counterpart. Please expound on one Josh Allen.
Yeah, on the other side of that game, they'll have to face a Josh Allen who, for the last 5 games, he's thrown 2 TDs. He's also thrown a pick, but then he's also got a rushing touchdown too. At least 320 yards in 3 of his last 5 games. And look at what Brock Purdy did to this Bengals defense last week. He had the turnovers, but he threw for 365 and had by far a career high 57 rush yards. We know that's Josh Allen's game. When he's on his game, I could see him with a very similar stat line, add on a couple of touchdowns there as usual.
Hey, Lawrence, just a quick question for me.
What's up?
What, in fact, does it do?
What it do? We about to see tonight on NBC with Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. We gonna see.
I'm just curious.
We gonna see what it do.
Okay.
Michael Smith, what it do?
Hey, Jay, here's what I want Jay to do. I want Jay to quote Chicago from Players Club. I want you to do something to make me feel good and talk about Dak Prescott, who, again, in Dynasty,
You just traded for him. It's good.
a boatload of assets to acquire. Not a boatload. It's a smart trade-off.
Jay, what are the lines on Michael mentioning his Dynasty team or me mentioning Fantasy Life?
Oh, it's a pick 'em. It's a -110 each side.
It's
Very close.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
We gotta tally that up.
Yeah.
We gotta tally it up.
We should make that for bar trivia. That should be a question.
I'll tell you what, Michael, to make you feel good, I think his past 2 starts, Dak Prescott has been the best quarterback in football. I don't think he's been the best quarterback for the whole season, but his past 2 starts, he has been, feels like he's gotten more of a mastery of this offense. And I think against an Eagles team that is really good at stopping the run, he's going to be throwing the ball. The best game I've seen Dak Prescott play was against the Eagles last year at the end of the season, where he and CeeDee Lamb just eviscerated that secondary. I think they'll do it again tonight.
I was thinking about that. CeeDee Lamb versus Devontae Smith. They put on the show last year at the receiver spot. We'll get to receivers in a second, though. Let's go a little deeper in the rankings. C.J. Stroud just outside the top 10 for you, Matthew Berry. Why?
He comes in at number 11, though, for me. I like this matchup against Tampa Bay, as they allow a league-high 299 passing yards per game over the last 4 weeks. They've given up 21.8 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks as well. And so Stroud, who doesn't have a great run game. The Texans have been effective running the ball. No Dameon Pierce in this one, so it's just Devin Singletary, who is somewhat of a pass catcher as well. I think it's all going to be on C.J. Stroud's shoulders, as we know the Buccaneers will be able to move the ball through the air as well. So Stroud comes in at number 11 for me. I do think he's, especially this week, with guys like, Russ and Goff and Lawrence and even Purdy on bye. I do think, I think Stroud, it's an ugly week for quarterbacks, but he's a top 12 play for me today.
Hey, Jay, Bryce Young got the better of C.J. Stroud, or his Panthers got the better of his Texans last week. First hour, you talked up a big game for Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think Bryce Young will build on what he did last week against Houston. Quietly, he's been building the past couple of weeks. I think also with just the new offensive play caller in Thomas Brown, I think that helps. And then a defense that doesn't particularly scare you on the other side. They got lit up last week. I think Bryce Young is trending in the right direction.
And Jay, your man Deshaun Watson, you've been talking up a bounce back game for him. First of all, just being out there healthy is a major step forward.
Yeah, well, a rotator cuff injury typically.
Jay, I'm sorry, I meant to say Lawrence, but go ahead.
I'll go. I'll take Deshaun.
Yeah.
It's typically 4 to 6 weeks for a rotator cuff. We're at the end of that timeline for Deshaun. I also think it's a good sign that the fact that he's playing and it's against the Cardinals, they could win this game with P.J. Walker. They're massive favorites going against
on the Cardinals.
Why are you
Cardinals
crapping
aren't very
P.J.
good.
Walker?
They've done Clayton Tune. P.J. Walker's P.J. Walker. I think Deshaun Watson, I think he's healthy.
Clayton Tune,
I don't know if he's good.
I like him at Houston.
But I
Zach
think he'll
Dillon
be
threw it to
healthy.
himself at Houston.
Of all the guys starting today, of all the new quarterbacks, you like Clayton Tune the best?
Well, there's only, so it's Hall, Tune, who else is?
Heineke, Rippin.
Not Rippin.
Heineke, Rippin.
I'm gonna go Heineke because we've seen him have his moments before.
O'Connell's not starting for the first time today, but like kind of.
But yeah, you could put him in
among
there.
the rookies outside of the Will Levis cutoff.
Yeah.
I like Clayton Tune coming into the year. I mean, for some reason he didn't start over Josh Dobbs. But I've always liked Clayton Tune going back to Houston. So
he slung it at Houston. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
I like Heineke of all the guys making their starts
because
today.
he's capable of doing something.
Yeah,
and
I also think he's got the best weapons around him. Honestly.
Did you have something on Deshaun Watson?
No, Bryce Young, just saying that although from a fantasy perspective he wasn't great last week, completed 71% of his passes against a middling Texans defense against quarterbacks in fantasy, he gets a much worse team against quarterbacks in fantasy in the Colts, and I'm actually with Jay and feeling like they'll go ahead and win the game as well.
All right, let's go ahead and get to the running back position. And Matthew, you were appalled at the fact that the Raiders were favored over Saquon Barkley's Giants.
Appalled is right. Like, again, I get it. Daniel Jones has been bad, and they don't have Darren Waller, but like the Giants were a playoff team last year, and Daniel Jones against Aiden O'Connell, it's crazy to me. That's it. I mean, maybe there's a change in philosophy with Antonio Pierce as the head coach, but give me Daboll over Antonio Pierce in his first game ever from a coaching perspective at the professional level. And Saquon Barkley is my number 2 running back. Look, first off, the Raiders are pretty good in the secondary. They've actually been pretty good. I think the way that the Giants move the ball in this game is through Saquon Barkley, who since he's returned is averaging 30 touches a game. 30 touches. That is a lot. 30 touches is a lot, my friends. Running backs that have gotten at least 18 touches against Las Vegas are averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. And again, he's averaging 30, which is more than 18.
Just a little bit.
More than 18. All we need is 18 to get to 20 points against the Raiders. They also allow over 152 scrimmage yards per game to opposing running backs. It has been a while, and it's been so much drama that maybe you forgot last Monday night when Jahmyr Gibbs literally ran all over this Raiders defense. I don't think they fixed that in 6 days. Give me Saquon Barkley to have a monster day today. He's, again, my running back 2.
Yeah.
Lawrence, tell me something. Well, tell me more about Jonathan Taylor, because we talked about him having.
Tell me what to do about Jonathan Taylor.
I'm going to let you know what it do about Jonathan Taylor. I see, Matthew, you got him at running back 4. I do as well. He had a season high 61% the snaps last week, despite pretty much being shut down in the second half of that game. Moss is still a decent start because you feel like he could get in the end zone. But one thing to note here, Zach Moss had 5 carries, 8 yards, and a touchdown before Jonathan Taylor was kind of shut down. So keep that in mind. Oh, and never mind the fact that the Panthers are the worst team in football against running backs in fantasy, and you're going up against the best one. So this, my friends, will be the day that we see the old Jonathan Taylor back.
All right.
We already kind of start seeing it, but now for real.
And Jay, Breece Hall.
Yeah, a little worried about Breece Hall. I think he's just trapped by Zach Wilson and the fact that he just couldn't do anything on the ground against the Giants. Now, he did take a 50-yard screen pass to the house, and that's the upside of Breece Hall is he can do that on any given play. But I think up against an elite Chargers run defense, I mean, his rushing prop is only 56.5, and that shows you where this Jets offense is at the moment.
All right.
But you're still starting Breece
I know
Hall.
you got to start him.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect.
one catch,
I was
one
hoping that
screen.
he would be, as soon as they really gave him the role over Dalvin Cook as a workhorse, 75% of the carries, I think there was upside for him to be a top 3 running back in football. I just don't think he can do that until Zach Wilson starts playing better and he's got more space to run.
Yep.
All right. Going a little bit deeper into the rankings. Hypothetically speaking, Matthew, what if somebody, had a dynasty team?
Yeah.
And was a little, short-handed.
Sure.
And even though Jonathan Taylor is starting to look more like Jonathan Taylor, really need to plug in a Zach Moss. Needed a big game for Zach Moss. Is that something that person, hypothetically, if he had a dynasty team and had to start Zach Moss, could they count on a big performance from Zach Moss, even though we're seeing more and more Jonathan Taylor?
I think that person will have more of a return than they deserve, to be honest with you. Look, you heard Lawrence mention it as well when he's talking about this. Again, Jonathan Taylor, I get it. He's the guy that got paid. He's the star. But Zach Moss, since Jonathan Taylor returned, I get it, JT's workload has increased every week. But still, He's had at least 14 fantasy points in 3 of the 4 games since Jonathan Taylor returned. He's averaging over 18 fantasy points per game here. Carolina is allowing 126 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs, and they give up 5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That's second most in the NFL. On the road at Carolina, I think that their defensive effort last week was what happened was the Panthers said, you know what, Houston, we don't think you can run the ball. We're going to play everyone back, and we're going to dare you to run. To which Houston said, okay, we'll show you. And then what Houston did is they proved, oh, yeah, actually, we can't run. You guys were right. Our bad. Sorry. And so I don't think the Panthers have suddenly become a great defense. The Colts, whether it was the Saints or the Browns, they played much more elite run defenses, and both of these guys have gotten theirs. So give me Zach Moss as a top 20 play today for anyone that you may know that has a dynasty team and might need to start him.
I appreciate that very much.
And that's what it do for Zach Moss.
That's what it do. That's what it do.
New segment. What it do? We'll figure it out. We'll work what it do with him moving forward.
Yeah.
All right. Connor is hitting us at the hashtag FF Pregame with a question. PPR Guillotine League, Matthew.
Oh, nice.
Needs a flex. Devontae Adams or Zach Moss. He has Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, Josh Jacobs, and Rachaad White starting. Needs his last spot and is nervous about Adams.
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get that. But you know what? Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I actually think I would start.
No, lie to him, actually.
I'm curious what you guys think. Again, Guillotine Leagues, for
Yes.
people who are unaware, Guillotine League is all about the lowest team in the league gets cut permanently.
Yep.
So this is a league where you don't need to have the highest points. You just don't want to have the lowest points. So it's much more about floor than it is about upside. It's a really fun way to play. But so you have to recalibrate your thinking here. I actually, this may sound crazy, but if I were you, Connor, I would take, assuming that White is Rachaad, or even if it's Zamir, I would take, or
Maybe
James.
It might be Zamir.
I don't think it's James, but yeah. I'll go with Rachaad.
I would bench White, and I would start Adams and Zach Moss. I think if you tell me between Adams, Moss, and White, one of those guys completely tanks, I think it might be Rachaad White. I get it. He's had the passing game
Freaking
usage.
checkdowns
But
are
he
just-
is the checkdowns have been there. But I get that you're nervous
full
about
PPR.
Adams. I get it. Last week was brutal, but I don't know. I just think because of everything that's happened over the past week, I think they make a point of getting the ball to Devontae Adams. Like the last guy that didn't get Devontae Adams the ball got fired and benched, right? I mean, Josh McDaniels and Jacoby Meyer and Jimmy Garoppolo didn't get Devontae Adams the ball. One guy got benched, one guy got fired. Aiden O'Connell's like, what do I got to do?
Also,
We're 17.
Aiden O'Connell, his starting against the Chargers, Devontae Adams had 13 targets.
Exactly that. So I would start Adams, and then it becomes between Moss and Rachaad White. And I actually feel better about Moss just as a talent. I think both, that's
And
what
the
I would do.
matchup, too.
It's a good matchup.
I'll just say this one thing. That's
Yeah.
not a bad call. Because, again, I do have, all jokes aside, I do have Zach Moss. He's had 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Aside from that, 57, 66 yards. We talked about Jonathan Taylor's usage. It's not like, I mean, Rachaad
I'm
White
with you.
in a PPR
Rachaad White,
league.
he's getting all, I know, it's dump off city.
Oh,
It's
my
dump
God.
off city.
You
It's
know,
dump off.
so that's the only thing I would say.
I hear all that.
But you're right about Devontae Adams.
But
They gonna-
I mean, like,
if
here's
nothing
the
else,
thing.
they're going to throw to him.
The game's in Houston. They've had a pretty plucky defense. They've been 30th against the pass over the last 4 weeks, but they're the 4th best run defense. So that is what you're hoping for. You were literally hoping for passing game usage because White has been incredibly ineffective on the ground here. And I don't know. I think that's a lower scoring game. I mean, the over/under is 40 in that one. Versus the Colts game, Colts Carolina, where it's 45. Like again, that's a coin flip. But for me, I'm saying Moss over
With
Rachaad
everything
White.
on
You've
the
really
line.
convinced me. I'm playing Guillotine next year. But since we're on Rachaad White, keep
We'll
the
get
ball.
we'll get you in the Guillotine Show League.
I love to, there's a Guillotine show
There's a
league that
Guillotine
I
Low
didn't know about.
Steven texted you and you did not respond.
No, he didn't.
I swear to God, he did.
Did you you're reading my text? Like how you know
This is
that
what I was told.
Steven texted me and I didn't respond?
Well, either Steven
Far be it from me to not respond to
Throwing
it.
people under the
might have
bus
been-
left and right.
Or it might have been Pete. I don't know.
This is the second straight year.
There's a Guillotine League show. There's a draft, and they were like, "Should we ask Michael?" I said, "Yeah." Like Michael hasn't responded. They're like, "Okay, let's do this," because it all came together quickly. I'll show you the text, and I'll
The
show
text
you
between the two
Bodies
of
on the
you,
ground,
No,
in which
basically.
somebody
where
lied.
somebody said right.
I'm
but
glad I ain't
but
got
I'm
nothing to do with
saying
this,
yes. You were on the initial list.
I've not seen such a bus in Stanford
I'm just-
recently.
I'm just
Everyone
saying.
now is
Wait, no,
flying
forget the
underneath.
bus. This is the second straight year They tried to left me out of the league.
It was Matthew's fault. It was Mr. Barry.
Mr. Barry.
So much for being number one on your list.
You were on the list.
That and 10 cents will give me a cup of coffee.
That time you weren't number one on
Here's
the
the
list.
thing. No,
Didn't even make the list.
You were on the list to be invited. Whoever was handing out the invitations, like the minions here, someone dropped the
little
ball.
people.
Yeah, one of the.
I'll throw them under the bus too.
I'll show
Who
you
else
the
can go under the
text.
bus?
I'll show you the text during the commercial break.
Okay.
How little can these people be when I get forgotten?
Unbelievable.
I'm just
Like, what does this say? Like, okay.
Oh boy. You want me to talk about Rashad White?
It might have been
Please,
Adam.
save the show.
It actually might have been
Rashad White.
Adam. Might have been producer Adam.
Started to take it personal.
Let's just
figure
name
out
every
who it was.
producer on the show. Yeah.
It was one of them.
Yeah, was it Brian
definitely one of the
Rubin? Maybe it was
producers.
Brian Rubin. Yeah.
It might.
He not here
It
with us
wasn't
no
me,
more, so
Rubes.
just use him. Yeah.
It was B. Rubes. But next year
You
you're
got
in.
something else
Shut
about
up,
Rashad
right?
White?
Yeah, Rashad White. So I think Rashad White gets kind of a bad rap. I think Rashad White is good. I think he's talented. He's the 16th ranked running back by PFF grade. It's just the problem that he hasn't had more than 4.3 yards per carry in a game this season. There's just nothing. There's no room for him. He still provides value because he's had 13 receptions the past 2 weeks. He is like the heir to the Alvin Kamara PPR Ponzi scheme, basically. It's Rashad White.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would probably start him over Zach Moss to that discussion earlier, just because I'm more worried about Jonathan Taylor just getting all of the carries than I am about Rashad White getting no work between the running game work and the pass game.
Look,
usage.
I have them very close, and to your point, I mean, I've ranked Rashad White at 15, and I have Zach Moss at 19. So I have them higher. I'm just saying I feel like Moss has more of a floor. My argument is for a guillotine league. I think Moss is safer to me. I get it. Your
What
argument
about
is
like how many? Just the receptions though gives you. That's just you're just banking. You're banking like
this is fair.
4-5 points just through that.
This is fair. This is fair. It's a coin flip, is really what it is for you.
That's it.
But his question was about Devontae Adams. Start Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Devontae's getting fed today.
Okay. We talked a lot about Pop Douglas on the Patriots
we
side
did.
of that Commanders matchup, but we've now talked about Ramondre Stevenson, Lawrence.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's been doing better because he scored the one touchdown a couple of weeks ago, but not really. 9.5 carries averaged the last 3 games, but he's had at least 5 receptions 2 of the last 3 games, which in 5 games before that, he was doing nothing in that department. Washington is middle of the pack when it comes to defending running backs in fantasy, but they allow 4.5 receptions to running backs. So if Ramondre Stevenson is going to eat versus this Washington Commanders defense, which you can do, it'll be in the receiving game.
Okay. All right. We got a question coming? Yep. Let's do it. Luigi, need your help. Go ahead, you do it. Read the question. Go ahead.
Luigi, I need your help.
I help you.
Helping you. It's me. It's Luigi. I help you.
Keep going.
You gotta start the 2 out of the 3. Half a point to PPR. Henderson to Singletary, James Cook.
I saw it.
Yeah.
He ruined Halloween for me.
Actually, I heard it. I was in the car listening to it. I'm like, okay.
Good. I like a Halloween and I like a ruining it for you.
Why does he sound like Stringer Bell from The Wire?
I don't think I do.
No, Lalith, our buddy here, asking this question, he must really wanted to hear that voice.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've brought it upon America again,
Henderson, Singletary, or James Cook. Boy, oh boy, that's a. I got to tell you, that's a tough one right
got
there.
Cook cooking.
I'll tell you right now. I have Cook at. I have just so you know, I have Cook at 17. I have Singletary at 21, and I have Henderson at 16. So I mean, it's all right there, right? I mean, it's 16, 17, and Singletary at 21. Henderson and Cook are my 2 highest ranked guys. Henderson and Cook 16 and 17. Singletary 21. He's going to get the. I mean, Cook and Henderson are both in timeshares, and Singletary should get the majority of the work. I just don't think the Houston run game is any good. And Tampa Bay has been so good. Like, what you're counting on with Singletary is that he's going to be involved in the passing game, which we think should happen, but we don't know for sure. I'm going to go Henderson and James Cook, but I think it's close, Lalith. And I get your problem. It's an issue. It's a tight one.
And when you thought it was over,
you. I'm rooting for you.
What's up with the head right there?
It's a me, Luigi.
I cannot. I will not.
We good?
Oh, but you can. God, let's move on.
Outside the top 20.
Yes.
Darkness, my old friend.
Chuba Hubbard. Matthew or Luigi, whichever you prefer.
No, it's hard to keep going.
Let's bring back Mr. Berry.
Yeah, exactly. Chuba Hubbard is my running back 23 this week. You see it there on your screen. We talked about him earlier in the show. But since week 4, he's averaging over 15 touches per game. They have gone to him away from Miles Sanders, and it was nice to see his usage again. Carolina changed their play caller last week, and Hubbard got fed as well. So going against a Colts team that allows the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, give me Chuba Hubbard as a high upside flex today.
Kareem Hunt.
Please. Por favor.
Wait, I don't think they do. That's Spanish.
That's definitely Spanish.
Arrivederci.
That means goodbye, which everyone has said to the show after you started doing that voice.
Coming back. I'm missing you.
Arrivederci, fantasy football pregame viewers.
Bonjour.
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 DiGiorno.
DiGiorno is a pizza.
Oh, dear. How do you talk about
Let's
Chuba
shift
Hubbard
gears
after
back
that?
to what it do.
What is Kareem Hunt going to do, Lawrence? Thank you.
What it do, Kareem Hunt? Kareem Hunt has 3 straight games with a rushing touchdown. He's got a touchdown in 4 of his 5 games with Cleveland. You going up against Arizona here that allowed the 3rd most points, fantasy points per game. 2 running backs. Past 2 weeks for Kareem Hunt. Week 7, 15 touches, 71 yards, a TD. Week 8, another 15 touches, 67 yards, and another TD. I know Jerome Ford was coming back from the injury, but what is clear is Kareem Hunt is involved and heavily at this point.
Sir.
Yep. And Jay, you want to take Alexander Madison?
I do. I don't think things are going in the right direction for Alexander Madison. He got 16 carries last week, but he only got 31 yards through that. Cam Akers seems like he's building in terms of his role. No Christian Darrisaw today. He's inactive. That hurts. If ever a team was going to load the box against the team, it's going to be the Falcons against the Vikings and Jaron Hall today.
All right. Let's get some wide receivers, shall we?
Yes.
Starting with one, CeeDee Lamb. Last week's wide receiver.
8s. His friends call him 8s.
Friends
You
call him. I call him
Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb.
Right.
Mr. Lamb.
Yeah.
Last week's wide receiver 1, your wide receiver 5 this week against Philadelphia.
Yeah. Number 88 on the field, but number 1 in your heart, number 5 in my rankings. Over the last 2 weeks, he's had a 33% target share. Your guy, Dak Prescott, has found him early and often, and he should against the Eagles, who have allowed 12 touchdowns to wide receivers. That's 2nd most in the NFL. You're starting CeeDee Lamb, and you're happy about it.
Lawrence, we talked about Breece Hall. I think it was Jay's line. Breece Hall being trapped by Zach Wilson. What about Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson may not be. His last 2 games, 90 receiving yards. The last one, 100 receiving yards. 3 of his last 4 games, he's had at least 12 targets. So Zach Wilson gets the memo that Jimmy G did not. Get your best guy the ball. And Zach Wilson is averaging 34 passing attempts since week 3. So we'll see if he can keep it going versus a Chargers defense that's much better against the run than they are the pass.
And Jay, arguably the best receiver in the league on a historic tear, one A.J. Brown.
Yeah, A.J. Brown, 6 straight games, 125 plus yards. I'm not sure he'll keep that going today, but I do think he will go over that 83.5, as Matthew talked about in Proper Shot.
All right, got a question here from Ricky.
Okay.
Sit 1, wide receiver, Evans, Addison, DJ, or Garrett Wilson?
Sit 1.
Sit 1.
I think it's
DJ,
Jordan
right?
Addison. No,
No.
I mean,
Addison.
I
It's the Jaron Hall
just
factor.
I feel better about Tyson Bagent than I do about Jaron Hall, who we just don't know.
Yep.
So it's super close. I mean, I have DJ Moore at 21, I believe, and I have Addison at 24. Yeah, I have DJ Moore at 21. I have Addison at 24.
If you were to pick 4
Evans
wide
and Garrett
receivers who are
Wilson.
wide receiver 1s being held back by their quarterbacks, it'd be that group.
Yeah, but I can't bench Garrett Wilson or Mike Evans. So it really becomes down to Addison or DJ Moore, and I feel like they move DJ Moore around so much in its target share.
He's definitely going to
We've at least seen DJ Moore be decent with Bagent. We have no idea what's going on with Jaron Hall.
All right. Want to go a little deeper in the rankings here?
Yes.
Wide receivers 11 through 20. We already talked about Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua, who is up.
Yep.
But let's get to T. Higgins.
We talked about him top
Yeah.
of the show. Since Tre'Davious White went down, the Bills allow the 5th highest catch rate to wide receivers. So over 8.5 targets in his 4 full games with a 23% target share. He's fully healthy tonight. T. Higgins, a top 20 play. Start T. Higgins.
Lawrence, Chris Olave.
Yeah, Chris. I'm definitely not Chris. Not today, at least.
Neither is Jay.
But what did Chris Olave do?
What it do for him is that Derek Carr's, he's been playing a little better in the recent weeks with a 300-yard gain. Olave's got 11, at least he's averaged 11 targets rather in the past 3 games. And Chicago has allowed a touchdown to a receiver in 4 of their past 5 games. Should be a decent little matchup for him.
All right, and Jay, we are convinced that Devontae Adams is getting the rock today from Aiden O'Connell.
There's just no chance that they're not going to feed Devontae Adams as much as humanly possible in this game. So I think he'll have a big day.
All right. A little deeper into the wide receiver rankings. Nico Collins, who had that blistering start, kind of quieted a little bit lately, but you got high hopes for him today, Matthew?
I do. Look, it's a nice matchup here with Tampa Bay. Last 4 weeks, they allow 209 yards per game to wide receivers. That is most in the NFL. No team gives up more yards per game to wide receivers over the last 4 weeks than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've actually given up over 11 fantasy points to 6 different wide receivers in just their last 3 games. So multiple guys can eat against the Buccaneers.
All right.
We saw Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid, and Stephon Diggs get theirs last week. I think Nico Collins and Tank Dell in that order get going against the Bucs.
And
Nico's a top 22 play for me.
Okay.
I'm at wide receiver 22. That's why it's a top 22 play. That's how that works.
Lawrence,
Okay,
how's Jordan Addison going to work out today? What did it do with him and Jaron Hall?
Hey, look, the kid has scored four touchdowns, and I'm sorry, he scored a touchdown in 4 straight games. Atlanta's one of only 3 teams to allow double-digit touchdowns to receivers this season. Look, there is a lot of questions about Jaron Hall at this level, but he made Puka Nacua relevant, and today he'll keep Jordan Addison relevant. I got him at wide receiver 22, not far off of Matthews 24 there.
At college, just so people are wondering.
Yes,
like,
yes.
So
Puka
Jaron Hall
Nacua
was
BYU.
Jaron Hall's main receiver in college.
Yes.
Yep.
Nice duo there at
Yep.
BYU.
And Jay, we had a question earlier, a start-sit question, and you sound like you felt really good about Gabe Davis as a start.
I do. I think he's being used in a different way now that they've shifted to more 11 personnel. He had 9 catches, 12 targets as well last week. So I think he's going to be a monster going forward. Wouldn't be shocked at all if he's a top 15, top 20 wide receiver the rest of the way.
All right, Matthew, one of my shot for shots last week, one of your shot for shots this week is DeMario Douglas.
If he goes off today, who gets credit for it? Do you, because you mentioned him last week when he didn't really go off, or do I get credit for him when he goes off today?
No, you do.
Okay,
you
good.
do. I'll make that call.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Anyway, the fact of the matter is you and I are both on DeMario Douglas, which we've seen 22% target share over the last 2 weeks. I know that they really like Douglas internally in New England, and that was even before the opportunity came about with Kendrick Bourne out for the year, Devontae Parker out today with a concussion. He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in a great matchup against my brutal Commanders. He comes in at wide receiver 32, and honestly, I'm probably too low on him.
Tyler wants to know who to roll with that flex today, Trey McBride or DeMario Douglas. Full PPR, got burned by Pickens Thursday. Ouch.
Then if basically you need sort of an upside play, I'm going to go with DeMario Douglas. I do think Trey McBride has a really nice game here, but I'd rather go against Washington than Cleveland, who, damning with faint praise, but I'd rather Mac Jones than Clayton Tune, even though I know Clayton Tune's your guy. But so give me DeMario Douglas in your situation, especially if you're in your hole because of Pickens on Thursday night.
We talked about 8s in the Cowboys-Eagles
sir.
matchup, but Lawrence, we haven't talked about Brandon Cooks.
Well, we talked about him a little bit earlier, and just think about this. Jamison Crowder and Jahan Dotson combined for 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns versus the Eagles last week. So those are the second and third receivers. That's the position Brandon Cooks is in now. He scored in 2 straight games. He's been playing over 70% of the snaps since week 3. So we like him here against this Philadelphia secondary.
Hey, Jay, do you like Jacoby Myers today? I know we like Devontae Adams, obviously, but ain't no comment. But what about Jacoby Myers?
I do not like Jacoby Myers today, Michael. Some concerns about Jacoby. He had 1 target last game, and he only had 4 targets the game that he played with Aiden O'Connell against the Chargers.
All right, tight ends, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Dalton Kincaid climbing the ranks.
We talked about him earlier, and we got a question about him, and I went the other way with Kincaid. But I will say I do think Kincaid has a nice game today. He is my tight end 4. Over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 16.5 fantasy points per game. He's got a 19% target share as well. So this is a nice matchup for Kincaid, as Cincinnati is bottom 3rd in the NFL in terms of most receiving yards and touchdowns allowed to opposing tight ends as well. Tight ends that see 5 targets or more against the Bengals, by the way, averaging 14.1 fantasy points per game. So I do like Kincaid as a start. I like the over on a lot of his props tonight as well.
All right, Lawrence, Jake Ferguson back to that Cowboys-Eagles matchup.
Yeah, we stand on the Philadelphia pass defense right here. And think about this, too. Ferguson is actually the Cowboys' second leading receiver right now. Overall, everybody included. So we like him this week as well.
And Jay, you got anything else on Trey McBride, who we expect him to get another big workload even from Clayton Tune?
I do. He had 14 targets last week, and his receiving prop on DraftKings set at 39.5 plus 105 the over. I like that. Seeing a guy who gets 14 targets one week can't be set under 40 yards the next. That's a general rule.
All right, if you're digging deep at tight end, Barry, who's another name that jumps out to you?
Look, Taysom Hill. I know somebody that predicted a rushing, receiving, and throwing touchdown for
What is
Taysom
that
Hill
guy
today.
smoking?
But he's been great. Hunter Henry and Gerald Everett, we've talked about as well. Everett back against, attack the middle of the field against the Jets. And my guy Logan Thomas, again, he's actually been borderline, and the Patriots have struggled in the secondary as well. So in a game in which they should have to throw quite a bit, Logan Thomas is pretty interesting among the guys there.
Speaking of throwing quite a bit, tonight, 2 of the league's best quarterbacks face off as Josh Allen and the Bills battle Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Bengals tonight, 7 Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Matthew Berry. What else you need?
Now.
Look at that smile. That's a great headshot, Jay.
Thank you, Michael.
Get your weekdays started with Bet the Edge. Join
We're
Jay
promoting this now?
and Drew, yeah we are, as they tackle the biggest games from every angle in the NFL, the NBA, and more. It's not just football with this dude.
I know.
So whether you're targeting
Like that
spreads and totals, looking for value in futures markets, or circling player props, Jay and Drew have you covered with new episodes every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern.
You know, like, imagine, how long you been married? Michael?
18 years.
18 years.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were on a show and I was just like, hey, check out Michael Smith's wife with another dude.
The dude has got longer hair than
yeah,
Matthew.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, yeah, exactly. Drew's got that luxurious, those
That's not helping
luxurious
his case for
locks.
pickup lines.
No, it's
Right?
not at all.
That's not.
It's upsetting, is what it
It's gonna be
is.
tough for you to take Matthew
Just,
home.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you know.
But before you get picked up,
Like, you know, I'm just, I don't know. Anyway,
But
like,
before you
hey,
get-
look at the
The
he's
other
all
show.
smiley in that one.
really looked happy.
He looked really happy.
He looked
like,
much happier than
right,
he ever looked with
exactly.
you.
He
He
looks
was
miserable
glowing,
here.
dare I say.
Yeah.
I thought he was glowing.
Literal glow.
Yeah. It's making me cry.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that.
Making
and
me
he did it.
cry.
Yeah.
You earned more,
Like
Luigi.
a minus
You
130
earned more,
favorite
Luigi.
was coming when it
Yeah.
cashed. Yeah.
Luigi not happy with you. All right.
Don't even have to be drunk to do the Luigi. But let's
do beer goggles.
we're in the mood
Let's go.
for some beers.
Yeah.
We do beer goggles this time of the show, where we
Yeah.
tell you how many beers we need to feel good about starting the following.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You just found out somebody's cheating on you. You go to the bar. You have a few.
Yep.
How many beers do you need to feel good about that decision?
and these decisions on top of other
Right.
bad decisions. All right. The Arizona at Cleveland matchup. Matthew, how many beers you need to feel good about starting Kareem Hunt?
Just one beer, honestly. Like, he scored each of the last 3 weeks. He's gotten 75% of the Browns' running back red zone touches over that game. Oh, by the way, they're playing Arizona. He's my running back 22. Just one beer, feeling good, just being social. I'm not angry at Jay
You're
yet.
nursing that beer.
Yeah, I'm nursing that beer. Like, whatever.
Jay, how about Amari Cooper?
You want me to take Amari Cooper? All right. I think that he's just one beer because Deshaun Watson, I think, will be of relative health, and it's an easy matchup. And Amari Cooper, he showed that he could cook with PJ Walker, so I think Deshaun will be an upgrade.
Lawrence, what about Marquise Brown? Catch a pass from Clayton Tune.
Yeah, you hate the matchup. You got the new quarterback, but he's had one game under 7 targets this season, and in half the games he's had double-digit targets. So, and they're 10-point underdogs, just 2 beers for me.
Matthew, Commanders at Patriots. My guy, Jahan Dotson, I was like a month early on his breakout last week. How many beers you need to feel good about him against the Patriots?
3 beers.
Yeah?
3 beers. Look, we know about Jahan Dotson's talent. We like that. He's had 8 or more targets in back-to-back games. It's a good matchup here. No Curtis Samuel as well. And since week 5, Patriots give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Although he's also had 0 red zone targets in 6 of 8 games this year.
Ugh,
and
don't
prior
like
to
that.
week 8, 3 straight games with single fantasy scores. So I'm leaning more towards starting him, but I think I'd want 3 beers here. I do like Jahan Dotson today, but I'm slightly nervous about it.
Jay, what about Brian Robinson?
Yeah, don't feel great about Ryan Roberts, but only 2 beers. He's still a starting running back. He hasn't gotten much work the past few weeks, but they have been down a lot, and they've had a lot of success through the air. They're playing a lot of heavier formations. I think they might lean into the run a little bit more today. So he's starting Brian Robinson for the most part with 4 teams on bye.
And his counterpart, Lawrence, Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, again, I pretty much feel the same exact way. You know, still the starting running back gets the workload there. You're going against Washington defense, so I will only need 2 beers to start Ramondre Stevenson this week.
Seahawks, Ravens, Matthew, Zay Flowers.
Yeah, look, Zay Flowers has a 28% target share in 3 of his last 4 games, so I only need 2 beers. You know, just enough to, feeling still pretty good, feeling okay. Like, not
Just to
100%
relax.
done, right? But just to, now I'm feeling good. Now I'm talking to strangers. He's had
Not
50
quite in the Luigi voice, but
Yeah,
you're
not a
talking to
Luigi
him.
voice,
Yeah.
but I'm just, whatever. I'm friendly now. I've had 2 beers. 50 or more receiving yards in 4 of the last 5 games. You don't love the matchup against Woolen and Witherspoon, right? I mean, it's a really tough matchup in that secondary as well. Only 1 wide receiver since week 4. Only 1 wide receiver has scored 15 or more fantasy points against the Seahawks. So that's why I need 2 beers. I think you're probably starting him. He's my wide receiver 27. I think he's a wide receiver 3. So it's a little bit risky here, but 2 beers, again, I feel better than not with Zay Flowers. Same with Jahan Dotson. Kind of like, I don't love it, but, can talk myself into it.
Jay, I just traded for Gus Edwards. Hopefully I'm not chasing points. I really like the matchup, though, and I like his role in that offense.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's kind of established himself as the guy with J.K. Dobbins going down. So his rushing prop set at 55.5 on DraftKings and plus 115 anytime touchdown scorer. So he's just locked in. He's a 60 rushing yards and half a chance at a touchdown.
And Lawrence, JSN.
Yeah, I'm actually going to need 4 beers for this one. With DK Metcalf back, he went back to being the 3rd most targeted receiver last week for Seattle. Even though he scored in the last 2 games, you got Baltimore. They're tough. They're allowed the 3rd least fantasy points to receivers. So I would need 4 for him.
All right, moving on to Bears, Saints, Matthew, Deontay Foreman.
Yeah, look, I'd three beers, probably a shot as well. You know, maybe a floater in the beer. Look, I'm nervous about him. I'm not going to lie. Under 50% of the snaps now in back-to-back games. With Roschon Johnson back last week, he only got 10 touches. Now, in fairness, that game got away from the Bears quickly, but that's the concern. There's no passing game involvement for Deontay Foreman, right? And it's not a good matchup with the Saints, who, since week 5, allow the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. With Foreman, what you're hoping for is that they keep it close enough that he can fall into the end zone, which is always the chance, but Johnson's more the passing down back, and so if you think the Saints win this game and they're currently 9.5-point favorites, then, you know, feel a little dicey about Deontay Foreman, who even in a week with 4 teams on a bye is just my running back 35.
Okay, what about his tag team partner, Jay, and Roschon Johnson?
Yeah, I feel okay about Roschon Johnson. 2 beers there. I think it's trending towards becoming his backfield. This is a youth, well, it's a movement for the future in Chicago, and Roschon Johnson is a part of that future. I think a sneaky thing is he had 4 targets last week. If he can get some receiving game work, that'll really boost his value.
How did you not get Michael Thomas? How did Lawrence get Michael Thomas?
I was thinking about it, but I asked not. I asked not to have him.
But I will hold it down. What it do for my,
What do we learn from that graphic? There's no loyalty with Jay. He jumps from show to show, player to player.
Gets around.
I need a new
gets
Michael
around.
Thomas kind of
He's,
fling.
you know,
Maybe become a
Stone.
Jacoby Myers guy or something.
Professionally, he's polyamorous.
yeah, with my NFL wide receivers in particular.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Michael
And your
Thomas,
podcasts.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas has now found a new home here, but it's
There you go.
still going to take me 4 beers to start him. He's only had 1 game under 7 targets, but he has yet to top 70 yards. And the team's wide receiver 3, Rashid Shaheed, the Dream, is always more likely to score than he is.
All right.
Yeah.
You loose?
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm drunk. I'm out there looking for other people.
You hammered now?
Yeah.
Okay. But not sloppy. Not sloppy. All right. Nobody wants to.
Little
Nobody's
sloppy.
coming up to the sloppy.
Little sloppy.
At the bar.
Little sloppy.
All right.
Not Dollarita sloppy.
Yeah.
The way it was 2 weeks ago in Philly.
All right, Lawrence, you get the first crack at
That's
Matthew.
your mic pack.
That
All
was,
right.
that was my phone, actually.
Oh,
You
okay.
get the first
All
crack
right,
at
well,
Matthew.
no one cares about that. We're
No.
good. All right, Lawrence.
Hey,
I'm here. I'm sitting here. You've looked. It's closing time.
Just remember,
you've looked
right?
around the bar and you're like,
Closing
"Hey, that's the best time. That's the best available.
Just remember who was on your mind a couple of Sunday nights ago, Sunday Night Football post game.
Yes, sir.
You're there on the set. You're talking about Lamar Jackson with your comrades,
Yep.
right? Well,
You had a great call. You had a great call that day in Philadelphia. Speaking of Dollarita, speaking of Applebee's, yeah, sure. Yeah, you had a huge call on Lamar Jackson that day.
We're going to bring it back to Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
This is why he's got the best odds to score anytime touchdown. Tied with his comrade, Gus Edwards, at plus 115. The next best after that is Mark Andrews at plus 150. So the Seattle Seahawks, you know, better run defense than they are pass defense. But when you're a good run defense, that doesn't really matter when you face Lamar Jackson, because you have to be ready for whatever he's gonna give you, right? And what he's gonna give you today is his 6th rushing touchdown of the season. So plus 115, you know I'm a plus money guy.
You are.
You know, so
All right.
I'm laying it out. We put it in on Lamar Jackson again, and you'll be talking about me this Sunday night as well.
All right. We'll see. Maybe.
Okay.
I'll definitely be talking about you this Sunday night. It's just whether it'll be on TV or bitching about you to my wife. I don't know.
Well,
Hey, can he go either
I'm
way?
gonna say on TV.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Fair enough.
Okay, Mr. Barry.
Yes,
Here's
sir.
what I've got for you. I'm taking you to Atlanta, Lawrence's hometown.
You gonna do me like that?
Yeah, I'm going to do you like that.
Okay,
I'm going to do
okay.
it right in front of you as well. All right. Bijan Robinson, Matthew, he's rushing over under set at 58.5 yards. Now, the book on Bijan was that his issue is that Tyler Algier is actually good as well, and he needs usage too. Well, he's not good anymore, Tyler Algier. Bijan is 4th in the NFL in rushing yards over expected. Tyler Algier is 37th. Last week, Bijan played 50 of the 68 snaps, and Algier played 15. I think Arthur Smith is finally realizing what the rest of America has felt like for a long time, which is Bijan is clearly better. It's just it didn't manifest itself in carries last week because they were losing to the Titans. They had to throw. Now, he's a 3.5-point favorite against the rookie quarterback. Arthur Smith is very conservative. I think Bijan is the guy, and I think Bijan is going to get the work. I think he sails over 58.5 rushing yards.
This is tough. I do like both these. I do like both these bets. I will say that I think that, after Gus Edwards getting the 3, that I do think Lamar is going to get a rushing touchdown. But I agree with you. Vikings have a top 10 run defense, but I do think Heineke opens up that offense, and you are right that Arthur Smith's tendencies are to always run the ball, and Bijan's there. God, this is a tough one. What do you think? You got a vote?
I'm minding my own business over here.
Yeah.
Go with the J.
Oh, he did a Luigi.
Go with the J.
Go with the J. With the Bijan.
J stands for
Love
Jackson.
language. She got you.
No, I got you. Love language. Exactly right. I'm going with the over. I mean, the nervousness makes me there with the. I do think Lawrence's bet hits. I definitely do. But, touchdown bets are always dicey as well. Lamar Jackson's why I'm out of the guillotine in one of my guillotine leagues. And by the way, Travis Kelce had a crappy game. I have Travis Kelce in the remaining 3 guillotine leagues. So I might be 0 for 4 come a week from now because Travis Kelce did absolutely
is
nothing.
Stressful, man.
You have no idea.
Oh.
It is a sweat like nobody else. But I'm going with Jay's bet here. I do think I'm trusting rational coaching from Arthur Smith, which is always nerve-wracking. But 58.5 is not tough for Bijan Robinson to get to.
All right. We have got to get to this break. When we come back, closing time. You don't have to go home. But you
Can't stay
here. But not yet, because we got some bar trivia.
Trivia.
Jay, you got some catching up to do.
I do.
Who scored more fantasy points, C.J. Hawkinson or Jordan Addison Lawrence?
Hawkinson.
Addison.
That's what you get on fantasy football pre-game, damn it!
Sorry. This is my natural reaction.
I can't do the rest of the segment.
All right.
I can't do the rest of
All right. Who had more
With
rushing
no
yards?
dollaritas in them.
Yeah, exactly. Who had more? I didn't do shots earlier.
A 3 or 4 week streak of crying laughing at one point on the show. Those are your bar trivia standings. We spent about 10 minutes breaking those down to start the show. Barry and Lawrence are locked up in a tight one. Jay, you're about 4 games back right now.
That's all right.
He's chasing. He's chasing. That's what happens when you spend time in multiple podcasts.
How do you say effort in Italian?
Yeah.
That's your next trick.
I'm certain there's a way. I don't know what it is. But
Pretty sure
certain
the
there's a way.
Luigi voice is an effort. Yeah.
All right.
I think my entire career is
Tomorrow's
effort.
trivia answers today.
Yes.
Starting with who
That's the premise.
had more passing yards, Taylor Heineke or Jaron Hall? Matthew.
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor Heineke.
Jaron Hall.
You on this Jared Hall
Yes,
thing?
sir.
All right, got
like
one
the
back on
BYU,
Lawrence.
Not as much as you, apparently. Who had more receiving yards, Amari Cooper or Marquise Brown, Lawrence?
Amari Cooper.
Marquise Brown.
Amari Cooper.
All right. Did Aaron Jones have over or under 75 total yards, Matthew?
Over. Free Aaron
You said
Jones.
you're going to be wrong about him.
Over.
They cutting them loose. Over.
All right. Who scored more fantasy points, Ramondre Stevenson or Terry McLaurin, Lawrence?
Ooh, Terry McLaurin.
Ramondre Stevenson.
You used
Ramondre!
I'm about to say, you used your effort for the time being. Did Derek Carr have a fourth straight 300-yard passing game, Matthew?
Yes, he did.
No, he did not.
Nah.
All right, one back on Matthew.
Who had more rushing yards, Kenneth Walker or Gus Edwards?
Kenneth Walker.
Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I'm going to say Gus Edwards.
Damn.
More total yards, Rashad White or Devin Singletary, Matthew?
Rashad White.
Rashad White.
Shot White.
Sorry, Devin Singletary if you're watching.
Did
4
Jonathan
minutes for
Taylor
kickoff.
finish as a top 10 running back, Lawrence?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Which team had more offensive yards, Giants or Raiders?
Giants.
G-Man.
Give me the Giants.
All right. Who had more total yards, Tony Pollard or DeAndre Swift?
Swift.
Tony Pollard.
More total yards? Crap. Swift.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, you could.
Wait, who did you
I
pick?
think you should just let it fly.
Swift.
You pick Swift. I'm gonna pick Pollard. Screw it. Let's make this interesting.
I'd pick
Sick of being
Pollard.
tied with you.
Yeah,
We'll be chasing you. Or be
that's
up.
why I'm going Jaron Hall.
All right.
Who had more receiving yards, Jamar Chase or Stephon Diggs?
Chase.
Stephon Diggs.
Diggs.
All right.
That was probably the right answer, by the way. I'm
well,
I'm
you
immediately
can't change- no
regretting Chase.
changes.
I'm not
You wanna-
changing
you can
Chase.
change
I did change
No
Swift with
changes.
Pollard.
You can change it.
No,
it's a
I'm
start.
sticking
The
with
rule is
Chase.
you can change it until
I
I
know.
move on to the next
no,
one.
I'm
Yes.
sticking with Chase. I'll stick with Chase.
Okay, cool.
He's an investor in FantasyLife.com, as you know.
I hadn't heard.
Yeah, just heads up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What it do, fantasy?
Exactly.
Who's
Yes, he's an investor. All right.
who scored
I'm drunk.
more fantasy points, Austin Eckler or Breece Hall? Matthew.
Eckler.
Eckler.
Damn. Brees Hall.
Bold. I like it.
Breece Hall.
We got a couple minutes left. We're early. A couple more viewer questions
Yeah,
on
let's
our
do
way
it.
out. Hashtag FF Pregame. Appreciate all your questions.
George
small.
Severino.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
It's our buddy George.
Grinding over Dalton Schultz with Tyler Algier in his flex standard 14-team league. Your thoughts. Also, Flip On Golf Channel after Fantasy Football Pregame. We're on from 3 to 6
For the
Eastern.
final round
For
of
the final round,
the
WWT Championship
yeah.
from
Los Cabos
Mexico.
and
Thank
Los
you, George.
Cabos,
Appreciate it.
Mexico.
That was
100%.
efficient tweet. Got a lot in
Listen, I mean,
there.
honestly, anyone watching this is just like, hey, I'd rather watch guys talk about football than watch actual football. So maybe I'd rather guys talk about golf than football. Give me Dalton Schultz.
Dalton
over
Schultz
Tyler
for me too.
Algier.
Yeah, I think it's Tyler Algier's done. He's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, Schultz.
Okay.
Not.
Have to start a wide receiver 3 in a flex in PPR. Tank Dell, Josh Downs, who's questionable but tracking the play. Christian Watson, Darrell Washington, probably.
I'm going with Dell and Brian Robinson just because we
Yep.
don't know
Yeah.
about Downs.
Me too.
But it's too. You can't risk missing out on those guys if Downs is inactive. So that's what you're going to do.
All right.
All right, there you go. Listen, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Go watch the Golf Channel. For the love of Pete. We'll see you tonight.
George Savaricas.
Bengals, Bills.
What'd he
For
do?
Lawrence, Jay, and Michael, I'm Matthew. Peace out. Yeah, we'll miss you already.